We hope to be able to share some exciting plans with you all in the near future and pray and hope that will be able to rely on the many friends of the trust for their support. Also, I must remark that today's lecture is particularly special, not only because of who the speaker is, but also the chairman of today's occasions. Both of them are daughters of my father, Professor Benjamin Osuntokun. While it is definitely a generational shift and one in which we all have strong personal and family relationships, I know that there are three men up there in heaven who are definitely smiling down and saying those are our girls. The trust is extremely grateful to Dr. MC Shulankekoya Esquire for accepting to be our guest speaker, and we look forward to her lecture today. It is my belief that many of us will leave here having learned a thing or two from her wealth of experience and knowledge in the medical profession. We thank you very much. For further information on the past activities of the Trust, please visit our website at benjaminosuntokun.trust.com. Thank you all once again for your presence here and enjoy the lecture.
Thank you very much, Lola, for that welcome address. And acknowledging the presence of the representative of the CMD, Dr. Otegbayo. He's represented by Dr. Inu. Thank you very much for your presence. It is much appreciated. When I was thinking about how to introduce the chairperson of today, and perhaps also echoing some of the thoughts my sister expressed about the generational shift, the word that sort of came to mind for me was Renaissance. And those of you of a scholarly bent will know that the period of the Renaissance was a period of great social change in Europe when things were upended. The trajectory changed in so many ways. Then I thought Renaissance. Then I thought to myself, Renaissance women or Renaissance men. Now, Renaissance people, I will use the term, or Renaissance women in this case. I looked it up in the dictionary, and for me, the description just epitomized the qualities of not just of the chairperson, but also of our guest lecturer. I'm not going to steal Bumi's thunder by straying off my lane and start talking about the guest lecturer. So I'm just going to confine myself to the chairperson, whose job it is for me to introduce. Now, the definition of Renaissance women, which I looked up, had this to say: if you describe a woman as a Renaissance woman, you mean that she has a wide range of abilities and interests, especially in the arts and sciences. There was another definition which said a woman who has acquired profound knowledge or proficiency in more than one field. Now, just hold those definitions in mind as I introduce our chairperson, and you see exactly what I mean. Our chairperson is Mrs. Yewande Zaccheaus. She's a childhood friend, a neighbor. She's one of those people who I say, I cannot remember when I didn't know her. It gives me real delight to introduce her. She is the founder and chairman of Eventful Limited, a pioneering and leading event consulting company in Nigeria. She studied law at the University of Lagos and thereafter obtained an LLM from Cambridge University. Yewande was a company secretary and legal advisor of EcoBank Nigeria PLC from 1989 until 2002. Now, after a successful career in law and banking, she established her own business, Eventful Limited, in 2002. She retired in March 2019. Pardon me, she retired in 2021 after 19 years of leading the company, which is one of the most successful event management and consulting companies in Nigeria. And having done that, she transitioned the leadership of that company, the first transition in the event industry. But Yewande doesn't just limit herself to business, law, and banking. She's so passionate about redefining what it means to host entertainment and successful events, changing the landscape. I'll just give you a few examples. She's the convener of the Fashion Souk, a fashion fair showcasing the value chain of the Nigerian fashion and beauty business. And I had the pleasure of discussing her last venture in London with Yewande, and true to her legal and banking background, she was down to the last detail. She wanted to get absolutely everything right. And I know that as she delivers her address, she will be doing the same thing. She's a founding trustee and chairperson of Women in Management and Business, known as WIMBIZ, and which is one of the foremost women-focused organizations in Nigeria. She's the author of 4 inspirational books: God's Waiting Room, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which were written as a result of her personal testimony and to encourage couples experiencing a delay in childbearing. In 2021, she produced a movie, The Wait, which was based on her personal experience and inspired by her books. The movie went straight to #1 on the Netflix platform in Nigeria. She has won several awards for entrepreneurial achievements, of which there are many. And she's a much sought after conference speaker. She serves as a director and chairman on several boards and NGOs, and was a recently appointed a non-executive director of Wema Bank PLC. So when I heard about that appointment, I said to Yewande, well, it looks like you've come full circle. You started in the banking industry, and you have now come back to the banking industry. But ladies and gentlemen, I mean, that is a profile worth celebrating. She has not limited herself to one field, but by my count, at least 4. So thank you, Yewande, a true Renaissance woman. The floor is yours.
Good morning, my distinguished fathers and mothers, ladies and gentlemen. I bid you all a very warm welcome to the 24th Annual Benjamin Oluwakayode Osuntokun Memorial Lecture. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to wish you all a very happy new year. We must congratulate ourselves on making it to 2024 after what I can only describe as a very interesting year, 2023. I'm so delighted to be here today as chairman of this auspicious occasion. However, I must confess that when my dear sister Lola Ifaturote called me up a few weeks ago to extend the invitation to chair the event, I literally fell off my chair laughing. How, Lola? Chairman, long. That was what I said to her. It was then that Lola told me that she had just taken over from her mother as the chair of the Board of Trustees, and that yet another of our sisters, namely Dr. Yemisi Shola-Nkekoya, Esquire, would be delivering the lecture. And so why would I think I am not qualified to be chairman? It was a real matter of Orokwe, and that was that. Even though it was a non-brainer that I would accept the invitation just because the Osuntokuns had requested, I still asked Lola to please give me a day to reflect on it, particularly as my only romance with the medical sciences was my attempt at A-level science in the hope of pursuing a career in dentistry to fulfill my father's desire because his mother had died from complications arising from a toothache. Needless to say, that adventure did not go very well because, as you all know, I am a lawyer and not a dentist. As many of you know, the connection and closeness of the Osuntokun and Akinola families go back many decades. But just in case you're not aware, here are a few fun facts for your information. Uncle Kayode was my father's best man at his wedding to my mother 64 years ago. My mother and Uncle Kayode share the same birthday, January 6th. Uncle Kayode is my sister, Ariola's godfather, and our esteemed board chair, Lola, is my father's goddaughter. I also recently discovered that my father was one of the first trustees of the B.O Osuntokun Trust until his passing in 2013. So given these facts and others I have not mentioned, I believe I have now convinced myself, and I have also established beyond reasonable doubt, that I am eminently qualified to chair this occasion. Thank you very much. As I took the time to ponder on the enormity of the responsibility of taking on this important role at such an auspicious occasion, as this annual memorial to an eminent and outstanding individual as Professor Kayode Osuntokun was, it occurred to me that the three of us, myself as chairman, Yemisi as guest lecturer, and Lola as the current chair of the Benjamin Oluwa Kayode Osuntokun Trust, have all come from the same fabric of life. Reminding me a little bit of this, my Ashoke jacket of many colors. We are all woven together intricately and seamlessly, and the outcome is a finished product that I believe our parents are extremely proud of. We were raised by hardworking, God-fearing men and women, professionals, academics, and entrepreneurs who lived their lives honestly and with integrity, which is so rare these days. We were raised by a village, all our mothers and fathers here, where all our parents had all hands on deck to teach, to discipline, to correct, to mentor, and to inspire us, thereby positioning us to achieve all we have done and be the very best we could be in our various professions. It is interesting that the three of us are all the firstborns in our families. Also interesting that the three of us are lawyers. We have been able to express ourselves in other creative fields of endeavors and shine just because of the way we were raised. Whilst always being extremely conscious of the Yoruba adage, to remember the children of whom we are. And now I have a new name for us. We are Renaissance women. So today, I think it is really important to acknowledge and celebrate the community that raised us, and particularly our parents, late Professor Kayode Osuntokun and Professor B.O Osuntokun, late Emeritus Professor Toriola Solanke and Chief Folake Solanke SAN, late High Chief Bayo Akinola and Chief Mrs. Olufembi Akinola. I celebrate them today, and I ask you to celebrate them with us. This is legacy. This is sustainability. And this is as a result of a commitment to the values that have made us who we are. My sisters, Lola and Yemisi, guess what? We have become our parents. So it is now 27 years since the establishment of the B.O Osuntokun Trust and 24 years of hosting the memorial lecture. And this goes to the very root of what this our wonderful community stands for: commitment, diligence, excellence, loyalty, perseverance, steadfastness. I am sure that there are very many families who have set up trusts and foundations for their loved ones when they pass. I am just as sure that only very few can stand up to say that for 24 years, broken probably only by the COVID pandemic and other personal reasons, they have been able to host a memorial lecture with such distinguished scholars and on such diverse topics of interest to the medical field and humanity in general. I celebrate and salute the Osuntokun family, and in particular, my beloved auntie, Professor B.O Osuntokun. Auntie, your absolute devotion and dogged commitment and determination to keeping Uncle Kayade's legacy alive is nothing short of phenomenal. It is truly, truly exemplary, ma. I congratulate you and all my dear abros who fly in from all corners of the earth just to be here to honor their father annually. Thank you for upholding your dear father's legacy. Amen. So now, let us sit back as our distinguished guest lecturer, Dr. Yemisi Shola-Nkekoya Esquire, delivers the lecture for 2024 in fulfillment of the principal objective of the Benjamin Oluwakayode Trust, which is to advance the frontiers of knowledge in the medical sciences in Nigeria. She has summarized this very complex topic, exploring the particulars, participants, and practice environment of clinical practice and research towards advancing frontiers of knowledge in medical science in two simple words: the Sukere-Bakere malady. As a medical doctor, a lawyer, and a poet, you can be sure that she will bring a unique perspective to the topic, which we will highlight and summarize during my closing remarks. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mrs. Akius. I am now going to ask Professor Olubumi Olapade Olapa to introduce the guest lecturer for today. Professor Olapa is a family friend, is a trustee of the Benjamin Oluwakayode Osuntokun Trust, and a former provost of the College of Medicine. He is well qualified and esteemed. Bumi, over to you.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Shegun. Chairman, distinguished audience, I guess you, from the last two speakers, would know that this is a family affair. So I would have loved to say simply chairman, members of the high table, but three of the, about four of the women on the high table are my sisters. So my sisters and those in the audience. Seriously speaking, this is a real renaissance, and I must really just let Shegun know that he behaved like a typical Nigerian. When a Nigerian says, "I don't mean to disrespect you," then he goes ahead and disrespects you. Said, "I don't mean to steal Bumi's thunder," then he did. Because I guess we've summarized the citation and I might as well go back and sit down. But to justify my presence here, I would do the task. Madam Chairperson, the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ibadan, ably represented by the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic Assistant in her own right, Professor Aderonke Bairoju, the Chief Medical Director of the University College Hospital, the Chairman Emeritus of the B.O Osuntokun Trust and the current Chairman, Lola Ifaturoti. It was with great pleasure that I accepted the task of introducing our guest speaker of today, Dr. Yemisi Koya Esquire, who is my surgical sister. They're all my sisters, but she has a special distinction. She's my surgical sister, being the firstborn and daughter of my surgical father and mom, the late Professor Toriola Feishiton Shola-Nke of blessed memory, and Chief Folake Shola-Nke, SAN, who is here present. Yemisi and I share the uncommon privilege of being tutored in surgery by the late professor, both in medical school and at home, at different times, of course, as she is my senior. In my case, the late and only king of surgery in West Africa embedded the principles and science of surgery into my DNA during regular tutorial sessions in his garden, and perfected my skills in the art of physical examination in his guest bedroom, where he would make me examine him. And as I used to say, I mean, really, there was not much you could do but be perfect if you are examining your professor. And that was a great honor for a medical student. Furthermore, Professor Sholanke's unflinching support during my postgraduate surgical training contributed significantly to my admittance into the hallowed inner chambers of the subspecialty training and the highest levels of academia of our craft in both the UK and the United States. It is therefore with great pride that I ask Sister Dr. Yemisi Sholanke Esquire to please stand as I read her citation. Our guest speaker was born and bred in Ibadan, Nigeria, as the first child to late Professor Emeritus of Surgery, Professor T.F. Sholanke of blessed memory, and Chief Sholanke Sholanke, SAN, the first female senior advocate of Nigeria and matriarch of the bar. Following her earlier education, she obtained her MBBS degree from the University of Ibadan in 1982, and thereafter completed her internship at the University College Hospital in Ibadan. In further pursuit of academia, she obtained her first law degree from the Faculty of Law, University of Ibadan in 1987, graduating first in her class. Thereafter, she successfully completed the Nigerian Law School curriculum and was called to the Nigerian Bar in 1988. Dr. Sholanke Esquire obtained a Master of Public Health degree from the Johns Hopkins University, Baltimore, Maryland, with a concentration in health policy and management. She obtained her second law degree from the University of Maryland, Francis King Perry School of Law, with a concentration in health law, and thereafter passed the Maryland Bar examination and was admitted to the Maryland Bar. She also received a Master of Laws in International Commercial Law with merit distinction from the Robert Kennedy College, Salford University. Dr. Sholanke Esquire's unique academic background and experience has provided her with the opportunity to explore different professional opportunities. As a physician for over 40 years, she focused on primary health care, initially at the Jaja Clinic in UI and the Healthcare Center Molete Ibadan. Thereafter, she has worked tirelessly as a public health advocate. As a lawyer of 35 years with the Alabukun Law Chambers, Ibadan, where she is the head of chambers, she handles both civil and criminal matters. Passionate about the importance of medical regulatory oversight, for over 2 decades in the United States, she served in various capacities, including the Chief of Investigations, directing all investigations, Chief of Compliance, directing compliance matters, and Director of Training and Communications, amongst other things, with oversight over internal and public-facing communication, capacity building, as well as legislative matters at the Maryland Board of Physicians. For 4 decades, she has been involved in various capacities at the intersection of public health and the regulatory oversight of medical practice through compliance, enforcement proceedings, enactment of legislation, promulgation of regulations, media relations, and public relations. As a mediator, she has mediated high-stakes disputes successfully. In addition, she has facilitated several lectures and work groups and delivered testimony before congressional bodies in the United States. Passionate about safeguarding the interests of Nigerian corporations in the realm of international contracting, she focuses on ensuring that inequities in negotiations and contractual inequalities are appropriately addressed, and we are presently taking advantage of that. Her legal work saved the financial institution millions of naira in a claim for damages, while her advice on international contracts on behalf of Nigerian entities has mitigated exploitative maneuvering, particularly as related to clinical research information technology. Dr. Koya is a zealous public activist and has written many open letters and reports on several topical matters, including but not limited to the missing Chibok girls, corruption, and Motekun, the Process and Industrial Development Limited PID case, the legality of marriages conducted at the Federal Marriage Registries, the Central Bank of Nigeria's cashless policy, and foreign airlines charging tickets in foreign currency. Notably, issues raised in her report in the PID matter aligned in material regard with the judgment delivered in Nigeria's favor. A staunch disciple of the rule of law, Dr. Shola Kekoya is an advocate for minority upliftment, gender equality, and preservation of human rights. Attending the Ibadan campus of Queen's School, Ede, and a Queen's School girl to the core, she's committed to passing on the torch of excellence to future generations. Consequently, she focuses not only on the upliftment of young girls, but literacy initiatives, mentoring, motivational speaking, so they can build where others have started. Dr. Korea is a member of several boards and is the chairman of the Lagos State Health Facilities Monitoring and Accreditation Agency. She is married to Dr. Kunle Koya, and they are blessed with 3 daughters, a son through one of their daughters and a granddaughter. Our chairman, or our chairpersons, the B.O Osuntokun Annual Lecture Series were instituted to immortalize the late Benjamin Oluwakayode Iseolorunpo Osuntokun, a neuroscientist sui generis and a physician and administrator par excellence. His academic achievements in biomedical sciences have remained unmatched for a quarter of a century after his demise. Having listened to the above citation, I'm sure you would agree with the trustee selection committee that Dr. Koya is the most appropriate choice to be a B.O Osuntokun guest lecturer. Madam Chairperson, my lords, spiritual, temporal, academic, medical, and judicial here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, by the kind permission of the trustees of the Benjamin Oluwakayode Osuntokun Trust, it is my honor and privilege, and it is with great pleasure that I invite Dr. Yemisi Koya, Esquire, to deliver the 24th Annual B.O Osuntokun.
Professor, I thank you so much for that very warm introduction. My distinguished and beloved fathers and mothers, I welcome everybody to this occasion as they did. Distinguished because everybody is distinguished. Friends and family, I also bid you a very healthy and happy welcome. I can see hands going on saying they probably can't see my face. So I'm putting down the computer. I hope you can see my face. So I welcome everybody and I wish you a happy new year. And as Yewande said, we're all celebrating the fact that we're here in this year, 2024. In the interest of time, I'm asking you to please allow me to adopt the protocol that has been so eloquently established by the speakers before me. Thank you very much. Also, I will crave your indulgence for some moments of personal privilege. First, I'd like to thank God for making it possible for all of us to be here. Next, I would like to express my profound appreciation to the Osuntokun Trust and the Osuntokun family in the people of my beloved aunt, Professor B.O Osuntokun, and my dear Aburos. I have some seniority here, so I'm going to use it to my advantage. And my dear Aburos, Lola Ifaturoti Esquire, the chairman of the trust, Remi Shoyanwo, I know is here, also involved in the trust, Shegun Osuntokun Esquire, also involved in the trust, Dr. Wale Osuntokun, and last but certainly not the least, Dr. Ni Osuntokun, Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Army, and the entirety of the Osuntokun family for this profound privilege that you have bestowed upon me. I have accepted this after a brief contemplation like Yewande did, like me, speak about at Uncle Kayode's lecture. How is that possible? But after profound contemplation, I said, definitely, we must follow where our parents have started. Therefore, it was all sense of humility and utmost responsibility that I accept this real honor. Next, I would like to recognize the presence of my mother, Chief F. Sholanke, the first female senior advocate of Nigeria and the matriarch of the bar. And to thank God for making it possible for her to be here today. Also, I would like to use that to identify my family members here, because this is a huge family. And to recognize everybody will take some time. Next, I'd like to venture briefly into the Zoom world to recognize the presence of my spouse, Dr. Kule Koya, and the family members there present, and everybody in the Zoom world. So collectively, everybody here present and everybody in the Zoom world, I thank you for honoring this invitation. Thank you. And as Yewande said, she didn't steal my thunder, but we were raised by the same parents. So it's likely we're going to say the same things. So bear with us if we sound like a repeating song throughout the day. So because before Hillary Clinton thought that she was going to make that adage an international adage, we here in Ibadan, we knew that it took a village to raise a child. Yes. Because if you were on the road at a designated safe space near the Bodija police station, we had safe zones, at a godly hour at 2 p.m. in the day, in the company of friends of the same gender, you know that by the time you get home that evening, you're going to face a query. They've forgotten that they're giving you permission. You couldn't leave your home in those days without your parents knowing exactly where you were going. But Auntie so and so, Uncle this and that, and Doctor this, saw you on that corner, but I told you and you gave me permission. But they didn't know those children. They're not from around here. And you say to them, they don't know them because they came out of town for a convention of the Girls' Guide. That was the nature of that upbringing. But the same parents all will call you before an occasion like this and pray for you and wish you well. So that stellar commitment to parenting has raised phenomenal children, I dare say. Many are beneficiaries here. But please, let me echo what some have said before me, that Lola is the chairman of the trust. And please don't say, oh, it's a family trust. You have to be qualified, and she's well qualified. An administrative law judge in the United States of America. Next, we also have, and these are my aburos, my dear aburo, Yewande, Mrs. Yewande Zacchaeus. You heard her introduction. A distinguished and notable entrepreneur of distinguished caliber in different ventures. Then we have Professor Olaokwa, whether they stole his thunder or not, an international renowned professor of surgery with a subspecialty in urology. Then we have Mr. Segun Osuntokun Esquire, a man of international distinction in the realm of international law. And my humble self. If this is not testament to that upbringing, I do not know what would be testament to that upbringing. So on behalf of that village, the children, I say we owe you a huge debt of gratitude, mo dúpẹ́ o. And if there are any high chiefs, mo dúpẹ́ o, a dúpẹ́ o, ẹ ṣé púpọ̀. If there are any high chiefs of the royal realm of the Ibadan kingdom here, ẹ bá wa pẹ̀lú ọ̀wọ̀ sọ fún Olúbàdàn kábíyèsí pé Ìbàdàn gbè wá, ẹ ṣé o. I would also like to, for a few minutes, thank all the distinguished lecturers that went before me. I know that Professor Oguni is here, and thank them and commend them for the superb lectures that they delivered. So when, on the 31st day of August last year, Lola called me and like Yewande said, literally blew my socks off. We started talking. And while we were talking, she said, you'll be given the privilege as the lecturer to pick your title and your topic. I breathed a sigh of relief because I'm not anywhere near Professor Osuntokun in the field of neurosciences, so I wasn't going to be able to do that. But she said if there was any way possible, you could attach it to advancing the frontiers of knowledge in medical sciences, that would be good. So I said to myself, I said, self, if they've given you this distinct honor, then make sure you attach it. And that's why my title is The Sukere-Pakere Malady, Exploring the Particulars, Participants, and Practice Environment of Clinical Practice and Research towards advancing the frontiers of knowledge in medical sciences. Lola, I hope that works. Now, since I'm the oldest of the crew here related to this program today, the distinguished chairman doesn't know this, but I'm going to crave kind approval that my official time starts after I give the tribute to Professor Osuntokun. Because Lola said, I asked her, how many minutes generally have people used? She said 45 to 70 minutes. I said, let me manipulate that time to my advantage. So with your kind permission, distinguished chairman, my time will start after the tribute to Professor Osuntokun. Thank you. All that was preamble. All right. Now, just so that the Osuntokun Trust, I have some of these disclaimers, are not held liable for anything I say, because I'm going to say some things, I'm putting this disclaimer. What I say is guaranteed by the Constitution of Nigeria, and they should not be attributed to the Osuntokun Trust. Also, I think I have one graphic slide. I will give notice before that. And what I say is to illuminate, not really to criticize. So why are we here? We have these marvelous pictures of Professor Osuntokun surrounding us. A gentleman with this distinguished style and smile. And you've seen how I described him. But I'd like to use this opportunity to tell you a brief story to actually illustrate the essence of this man. So last December, I was at, coincidentally, the December retirement program of Professor Oguni, who is one of Professor Osuntokun's mentees. So I'm absolutely right to call Professor Osuntokun an inspiration. And the gentleman they brought from Newcastle to deliver the lecture said while he was doing some research on certain aspects of neuroscience, he came across this name several times. Osuntokun, Osuntokun, Osuntokun. And I said to my sister, Busola sitting next to me, that's Osuntokun is our Professor Osuntokun, Uncle Kayode. That's the essence of the man. That in the world of medical sciences, his imprint is indelibly in the science of annals of medicine, that so long after he has gone to rest, his legacy lives on. Because more than that, he's an inspiration to the present, a phenomenal teacher, an exemplary clinician, and a man with medical vision. So I pray that his works and his legacy will remain endured in the times of medical legacy into the future. Not only Uncle Kayode Osuntokun, but Uncle Kayode Osuntokun. And as his name foretold, please, the Professor Awe here, please permit me to expand the meaning of Ayo to mean not only joy, but also fame and positive notoriety, because his name foretold what he was going to establish. He was going to bring Ayo, the expanded Ayo, to his family, to Okemesi, to Ibadan, to UCH, and to Nigeria. Thank you very much. My time starts now. I'm going to try to make this a little bit interactive so I don't bore you. My goal today is not to speak about one type of advancement in medicine, but to speak about certain parameters and propelling forces on which advancement rests. Because advancement itself is not a self-sustaining entity. Rather, it is dependent on certain factors. So please, when I ask some questions, let's interact. Then I'm also going to take us into a brief adventure to see and describe certain new advancements in medicine to show what that is important. I'll also make some recommendations and then we'll conclude. So please, if in Nigeria or anywhere, you've been in this type of traffic, please raise your hand. I'm raising my hand. Oh, absolutely marvelous. Everybody has been. And I call this the sukere-pakere malady. And what is that? We all know what it is. You're going on at normal speed, and through this lecture, you may be able to identify two of my favorite musicians. And then suddenly for emphasis, as the great fella sang in Unknown Soldier, you see this materialize in front of you. And you know the complexion of your day has changed. You try to move and you move only one smidge of the tire revolution. Then you're stuck in that place permanently. So that movement is the sukere. The being stuck in that place for a long period of time is the pakere. So that's the ad nauseum cycle that continues. So the sukere-pakere malady. You can't go forward and you're stuck where you are. And this, ladies and gentlemen, I think is very representative of the state of advancement in Nigeria, which has transmitted itself to the world of medical sciences. And I say it is of many dimensions. First, we have lost some of the advancement we've made in the past when we were moving at a steady clip. And now we are not moving as we should be because we're in the confines of this sukere-pakere malady. So the combination of this is that we're not moving as we should move. And this is unfortunate. And sometimes it's so aggravated that the blockade in front doesn't permit you to even move forward. You have to find a way to go back. Now you can see some of those items I have put on the screen, which will show us some of the particulars we're going to talk about. You see data mining, participants, the doctors, the clinicians, and also we see the practice environment, like the primary health centers, UCH, and of course, Nigeria. Let me first illustrate this with a case that involved the great Osuntokun. And this was the case of a 12-year-old admitted under the great prof at UCH about 52 years ago. I have the permission of the patient to talk about the case. And this patient had an elevated temperature, fever, also known in medical terminology as pyrexia. All the medication did not bring that fever down. All the tests that were done to identify what the cause of the fever was were not helpful, and therefore the diagnosis, as we know in medicine, became pyrexia of unknown origin. And what did the great Osuntokun do? He decided to talk to the parents of the patient and said to them, I'd like to try this modality. I think it will work. He expressed confidence it would work. And what was it? It was immersing that patient, full body style, into a bath of ice cold water and ice blocks, what we know as aka cryotherapy. And nowadays, there are actually chambers for that. And on the first occasion, the patient was brought out, it didn't really work. The temperature remained as high as it was. And I put the patient in for the second time. And the second time when the patient was brought out, it did work. The temperature abated, the child was observed at that UCH for some days, and everything worked out well. The child was then allowed to go home to continue life in the full measure. But it provoked what? How? 52 years ago or more, did the great Osuntokun know about cryotherapy as treatment for this type of situation? He knew because he did not want to be confined by the limits of the education and the knowledge he had. He continually expanded the frontiers of knowledge that he had. He had a vision. He would develop a plan. He would execute it. He will adapt the plan, and he will make changes where necessary. That is advancement for you. And we are grateful that the great Osuntokun did not engage in medical sukere pakereism. So we see what we got from this case. We have data, the great Osuntokun usage. Now, if a doctor today wanted to conduct some research on all the cases that the great Osuntokun and his colleagues attended to from 60 years ago to the present time, he may call or she may call the records room at the UCH. And if the records are still in the paper form, it might be a challenge to get all that you need because they may not be cataloged by disease. They might be cataloged in alphabetical order or the registration number. So it means that somebody may have to look through those cases and get those that deal with pyrexia of unknown origin. And I say, if we're talking about advancement, if you want to go from Sapele to Sokoto, I mean, you may walk if you feel like walking, but in case of efficiency, you might take a car, you might take a train, and you might take an aeroplane for efficiency. Same thing for us with respect to medicine. We should use electronic records. And I am not talking about the electronic records that are isolated silos, one record, one computer here, and the other computer at the surgical outpatient, the one in pediatrics, not communicating with each other. No, we're talking about an integrated, interwoven system of computers where the computers understand their own language and can communicate with each other. So whatever is in admissions is at the medical outpatients and is at the emergency department. So this is going to be my second interact. When we talk about electronic records, two typically come to mind: the electronic medical records and the electronic health records. If you have the opinion that they are both the same, please raise your hand. Please do not raise your hand. Thank you. If you are now of the opinion that they are different, now you can raise your hand. Marvelous. Everybody got that right. So, what are electronic medical records? I've already described them. They are that integrated system of records where all the patient's medical history is contained in the digital form. So anywhere you have authorized access, you can pull up that record. Whereas the electronic health records, they're a broader repository. The EMRs are only located at one facility like UCH. But the EMRs, the electronic health records, they're broader. One, they're central repository. So if you have several facilities like the Great UCH, Jaja, Oluyorobambi, and some Amoli, and some of the laboratory centers like SynLab, dialysis centers, any in one designated network of facilities, what do you have? The ability through the electronic health records to get that patient's record anywhere. That could be extended also statewide, and that could be extended nationwide. So as we look at the benefits, please let me quickly illustrate with two cases. These are hypothetical. So you have the case of patient B, an unconscious Ibadan UCH patient brought by his family members. He's dripping wet and he has lacerations all over his body. Of course, the family members are in the Yekpa stage of extreme anxiety. And as you're trying to manage the patient, you're trying to get information from the family members so you don't compound any issues. So you ask them, and also so you can retrieve the medical records. So you ask them, what's his name? And they say, Babat Amodu. And then you know the way, as clinicians, how that journey is going to pursue, because there's no way to look for Babat Amadu's records. Then the next thing you ask them is, how old is he or the date of birth? Kumadedaju is not clear, all right? That's another problem. Then you ask them for the address. With the address, they have some specificity. They say 24, Beranle Kodide Street, near the collection of water, Nibi Odo Kokoro Ito. Why do they have that specificity? Because that pond is notorious for schistosomiasis. Then you have the audacity as a doctor or a nurse to ask them, Shola Ison, Shomogu, Aisoke, Rarao. And that man has hypertension, diabetes, and hypercholesteremia. And then you ask, okay, what happened? They tell you, well, they found him unconscious in the pond. Two things might help us here. The address to pull up the records, and also we'll talk about him being found in the collection.
Okay, don't wait.
But wouldn't it be good if maybe when he had registered as a UCH patient, he was given retrieval information for an electronic record, and that information was in his pocket, like the number, or that NIN number, which is now like an albatross on our necks, and they say we can't collect our money from the banks unless you have that NIN number. Excuse me, I go on a rant sometimes, but that's a debate for another time. And that is put into the system, and boom, all his information comes up. Tells you he's a 55-year-old man. He has all those diseases, but more importantly, he is
electronic medical record. What are we?
So while you're thinking of managing all those lacerations on his body, you know you're not going anywhere near penicillin. And then you find out that he's morbidly afraid of schistosomiasis from the family history because he's seen some of his family members struggle with it. So when you revive him and treat him, and you tell him, take your medication, but we know that you're morbidly afraid of schistosomiasis, and we're going to watch you and monitor you, and should you get it, we'll treat you. He's going to think, àwọn dókítà yìí o, àǹjọ̀nú ni wọ́n, nǹkan tí a sọ fún wọn, wọ́n mọ̀, meaning these doctors can read your mind, and they can find and know what you didn't even tell them. He's forgotten that he gave you that information. But that is positive notoriety for UCH, because he's going to tell everybody he knows, and we need that. So that's for electronic medical records as usage. So quickly, let us go to electronic health records. A patient from UCH goes to Lagos, is found at the side of the street by a good Samaritan. Before she lapses into coma herself, she tells him, "I'm from Ibadan," and her name. Of course, the good Samaritan is not going to drive her all the way to Ibadan to UCH. If he stops on the road and the policemen find an unconscious lady in his car, he's going to be in big trouble. So of course, he takes her to the nearest hospital where, using her name, they bring up in national health records that she's a 35-year-old woman who is a hemophiliac and has a precious baby syndrome going on. All babies being precious, but she's been trying to get pregnant for 10 years and has just conceived. Won't you be happy as a doctor to know what management track you're going to go on? So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the benefits of the electronic medical records, the electronic health records. And I'm going to appeal to those of us present who are in the corridors of power, or those who are the big money bags, or those who are associated with them. Please impress on those who are making policies that we need to start the system of integrating our medical records. We start incrementally. There can be EMRs which we integrate into electronic health records. Thank you very much. As we all know, data is the new oil. Everybody wants your data. If you're not careful, they steal your data from you with your eyes wide open. So we need to protect our data in Nigeria. So we have many types of data, but I'm going to talk about only two today. And those are going to be, can you still hear me? So structured data and unstructured data. So for structured data, we have quantitative type of data, which is highly organized and is easily read by computers. Then we have the unstructured data, which has no predefined format. And this is going to be helpful for us in the future. Now, let's talk about data processing. Data is running the world. And if you saw in that slide, on top of the data, you had an oil rig. So the world is moving away, really, from most of the natural resources as data, as the resources. Is moving into this world of data, and we need to protect it. What can we do to data? We can mine it. That's analogous with mining natural resources. We have all this data, we put it together, we extract it, and we use it to our benefit. Then we have data transformation processes. We transform data from one to another so we can better visualize and use it. This is important, but in Nigeria, we do not have these technologies and capacities, and we are reliant on other climes to do this for us. Say it's high time that we engage in data democracy. We harness our own benefits of our own data by ourselves, for ourselves. So we need to critically evaluate the lacuna in the technologies of data and change that. So those groups, please tell the policymakers, and we're going to highlight this soon. Now, we talked about some particulars. Let's talk about some participants. And with the participants, I want to use informed consent as an aspect to highlight this. And when we talk about informed consent, I'm talking about that for clinical research. And it's really beyond the informed consent for clinical treatment. So this informed consent also addresses the risks, the benefits, but also talks about the aims, also talks about the methods. It talks about any conflicts that the researcher may have, or any of his or her affiliations, and any discomfort it may entail. And all this is to give that human being that's going to agree to be part of research all the information to make that decision. And And actually, it is imperative that we continue to do that so that the trust of the people with the medical society is not lost. So let's highlight this with 4 cases quickly. First of all, let me quickly talk about exploitation. And I thank the research team for finding this. This is what happens, and I'll talk about it. Exploitation was in the form of colonization. That was exploitation. Exploitation could be overt or it could be covert. And it is an exploitation of our vulnerabilities. And everything that's going on in Nigeria in terms of medical technology and the lacunas therein is an open book for other climes. And they may use that to their advantage and to our disadvantage. So let's look at this poor lady that had the misfortune of being a slave, and they were going to use her for experiments like the Nuremberg Nazis did, and which led to the Nuremberg Code, which brought up informed consent. But what bothers me most is the 2 ladies at the side who are not screaming, I hope the scream, blue murder or bloody murder. Rather, they've come to watch Sunday night television at the expense of the poor woman. So let's talk about these 2 cases briefly. These 2, Henrietta Lacks and John Moore, their cells became cell lines patented for fortune and fame without their knowledge. They had no idea. It was too late for Henrietta, she died. But John Moore found out that cells were taken from his spleen, which was removed and he consented to for treatment of his leukemia. Then he found out that the doctor, finding his cells very useful, patented them and called them the Moore cells. So he went to court and sued. He won on the aspect of informed consent. The court that the doctor violated that. But unfortunately, with propriety, with respect to propriety rights, the court somehow decided that he did not have rights in the discarded cells. It was the Supreme Court of the state of California. And I respectfully disagree with our court. I say, like the principle in land law, those who own the land own everything on top of it. And those who own the cells must own everything that is derived from it, because without those cells, you don't get the most cells. So that is my respectful submission. Then next, but that is a debate for another day. Now let us go to these 2 cases. The Tuskegee gentlemen, they deceived them. They said they were treating them for bad blood. They were watching the progression of syphilis in them. And these beautiful Havasupai people, they said they were looking at their blood for diabetes, but somehow nothing is hidden anymore. It will come out. It was determined that wait for it. They were examining the blood for the connection with schizophrenia and inbreeding, unknown to these individuals. They found out, they sued. They unfortunately did not take the issue of informed consent all the way because they settled. And I believe they settled for a paltry sum of money, $700,000 for this group of people. But more importantly, this group of people banished research. They issued a banishment order and banished their members from participating in research. And what that does, it prohibits us from learning information to help them and to extrapolate to the greater world. And not only did that team do that, some of the other Indian groups did that. And to show you how a breach in trust can also live so long, the 2 cases of Henrietta Lacks and the Tuskegee reared their heads again during the COVID pandemic. The minorities, the minority groups were loath to get the vaccinations. Not because they were anti-vaxxers, but because of the legacy of Henrietta and the Tuxedo. So we have to be very careful. So if at the great UCH, we enroll people for a study in breast cancer, you don't read your documents well, and suddenly one of the mamas enrolled in the program, her grandson calls her from Kansas and says, "Grandma, you know that research that you're engaged in? They're also exploring it for schizophrenia and inbreeding." And Mama says, "Ha, wait, no. I'm going to call the doctor on Monday morning. They need to stop this research." So Monday morning, the doctor's phone goes off the hook. "What's going on? You expanded the research," "But I didn't." Then he calls his partner, the other side of the contract in Colorado, and he says, "What's going on? Did you expand research?" And when we were earlier talking, and we talked about only breast cancer, and says, "Yes, I did." "But why?" Said, "Because during the negotiations, we included in the contract, and you signed the contract." So ladies and gentlemen, this is another form of exploitation. And right now, our clinicians and researchers have to engage in advanced methods of reviewing their contracts so that they don't fall prey to contractual entrapment and one use becomes multiple use. And there's this issue of this financial enticement because they are aware of the challenges in Nigeria. They dangle money, and suddenly we sign without reviewing the contracts well, or because we are so indebted, they come with us with money in one hand and one ill-suited policy for Nigeria that doesn't work, and we accept it. So we really need to be careful. Now, I'm coming to the slide that may be graphic for some. If you don't want to see it, please avert your eyes. Thank you. And this is because this is how surgical procedures used to be done in those days. The attempt of anesthesia was either giving them alcohol, knocking them on the head, telling them to grind down, or just tying the person down, like in this situation. But medicine knew we couldn't continue this way and continue to advance. So the field of anesthesia has advanced to such a degree that people are requesting propofol for sleep outside a medical facility. That's not its use. It should be used in a medical facility, but that's why we're here advancing anesthesia. Now, let's look at sickle cell and CRISPR. I'm sure some of the doctors are aware of this, and I explain it a little bit. When there are some diseases, they are due to genetic mutation. And the field of research, they studied bacteria to the point where they found that bacteria themselves, they don't want to die. They don't want to die. Placentofecal, including bacteria. So when they're invaded by viruses, they use this to destroy the viruses. So we now move that into medicine, and we use it to treat diseases that have genetic mutations. And what is it? It's a complex of an RNA that I call the scout, and also the molecule called Cas9. So the RNA goes to look for the mutation, finds the mutation, and his brother or sister, since the sisters are more here today, it seems. So the sibling comes, and it's called a molecular pair of scissors, cuts that mutation. So what can doctors do? We can now implant a new DNA program. So when we have that DNA repair itself, it repairs itself with that DNA, and we're using this to treat diseases. Isn't that marvelous? It's marvelous indeed. But my question is, why is this not happening at the great UCH? We have so many cases of sickle cell disease in Nigeria, and in usage. Why are we lagging behind? Because of the Sunkere Pakere malady. Now, let's talk about another advancement quickly. When we have people who are dehydrated or have lost volume, we try to figure out how much volume they have. And historically, we use observation. We also use the ultrasound of the IVC, the inferior vena cava. But now, they've come up with this instrument that can objectively and reliably tell you if there's a deficit. So you can now proceed to management of the patient. So to answer the question, why have this when the landscape of medicine is not as advanced? I say, why not? Have it, do your data analysis, and if you have gaps, you know that you will have to address them. But why should we use the old-fashioned way of trying the deficiency in volume, which may be at a critical point for a patient, when you can do it with this clip on the finger and save the patient's life? So sepsis is a terrible disease in the hospitals. It kills many patients. And medicine doesn't want to lose patients. So what they do, they decided that they are going to find out how sepsis can be better detected or predicted. So they use some algorithms using the computers. But what did they use? They are using electronic medical records or electronic health records. They have their computer algorithms that are going to do what? To mine. Remember, I talked about data mining, to mine data and figure out, looking at everything, does this man or woman have sepsis or will have sepsis? They did that. They were not satisfied with that. What next? They said, let's improve this. Let's give ourselves a longer advance time so we can find out who may have sepsis. So they said, you know what? Let's not, and they were using structured data. Let's expand it to include unstructured data. And from that combination, what could they do? They improved the diagnosis, and the lead time is 48 hours. Isn't that marvelous? It's marvelous indeed. And ladies and gentlemen, there in these various models, but the model here is called Kate. So please, I hope this video will work. Please listen. Maybe you hear the word Kate. Are you here?
No, and anybody who's worked triage would have looked at him and go, oh, you know, you're not big sick. Let's stick you in the waiting room. We'll do a little workup and see where you go. But the nurse who was there, who's an experienced triage nurse, who's been using Kate, noted that the patient was slightly hypotensive. And then with all of his history and all of his assessment, Kate said, this is a sepsis alert. So she took it again. She said, okay. She puts him in front of the physician who was our medical director, but he noted that Kate had done a sepsis alert. So instead of arguing himself out of it, he adopted it and we launched the sepsis protocol. The patient's lactic acid was 4. We gave him some fluid, started him on antibiotics, did an x-ray, and he had beginning gas gangrene in his ankle that was affected by the wound. In about 4.5 to 5 hours, we admitted him to the ICU for sepsis. He takes a terrible turn in about 6 hours up in the ICU where he has to become intubated. goes to surgery. By the time he gets to surgery, he has developed pretty remarkable gas gangrene. He was in full-blown sepsis. He did have his ankle amputated, but when I saw him the next day, he was awake and alert, getting better because the source of the infection was gone, and we put him on the right path for a better outcome.
So that gives us an idea about how these advancements work. Wouldn't it be lovely that we had this type of systems working in Nigeria and at the great usage? And these are just tools to help us because we can manage the sepsis. We can treat the sepsis. And people say, why do you need all this high-volume technology? Because we want to save lives. That is the reason. We want this type of technology, and we're pleading for funding in the medical industry. Now, we cannot in Nigeria, I cannot stand up here and not talk about corruption. It's not possible. If I were to leave, some people might say, why didn't you talk about corruption? Corruption in Nigeria is a problem, and we have to address it. It's taking money away from the nation and putting it in the hands. And I said I would say a few things. It's a descriptive term of thieves and vagabonds. That's what they are. They're stealing. If you steal, you're a thief. That is it. All right. And if they come and say, why did you say so? Because you are a jaguda. All right. Now let's look at this. You remember I talked about exploitation? And people know we are not us here. Nobody here is corrupt. That Nigeria has corrupt people. They exploit it. And that's what happened in this huge case, this process and investment development case, which our great-grandchildren's great-grandchildren will have suffered loss, if not for this honorable judge in England that found in our favor. So when people, and what the judge said was, the corrupt people outside Nigeria found the corrupt people in Nigeria, and they came up with this fraudulent scheme to defraud Nigeria. And those of us who read the contract from word go, it was not a contract, it was a scheme to defraud. So we need people of integrity and honesty in all areas of government. And I continually ask my sister, my mom, my family members, do these people have an access card to the National Treasury? And you just go there and you just carry 50,000 Ghana must go bags of money? Or do they have an access card to transfer? How do they get these mind-boggling sums of money? Now that we're talking about advancement, ladies and gentlemen, this is a democracy. We are ultimately responsible for this democracy. We have this birthright. We need to engage in activities that are going to stop this rot, or else we will not have a nation that will be conducive to living in. We're seeing the signs. First of all, I would like to emphasize that this Constitution of Nigeria says, we the people, having firmly and solemnly pledged, hereby give ourselves this Constitution. So, ladies and gentlemen, who's the Oga Pata Pata in Nigeria? You. We may have these honorifics that we give to the people in power. Honorable this, honorable that, Mr. President, Mr. Governor. You are the supreme sovereign. You gave them that power. And therefore, we must make them accountable. So some of my recommendations are this. Anybody, and they say, I really didn't want to run, but they told me to run, okay? But did you sign the application form and sign your name? Well, if you did, that means you want to run. And if you run, they should take a corruption test. I'm not joking. 4 questions. Are you a thief? Will you steal money? Will you illegally transfer funds? And will you engage in corrupt practices? Anybody who answers yes, they should not run, obviously. But if they answer no, we should have a public website where that is placed. And if they engage in corrupt practices in the future, we should shame them with that. It's come to public shaming. Thank you. The next is they are public servants. My mom reminds me, in the 70s, you signed as a public servant. I, yours faithfully, your public servant. So when they gave me the small appointment in Lagos, I was saying, yours faithfully, your public servant. Because they are not our bosses. And then you see the orderlies trying to beat people out of the way. And I'm like, how dare you? You are trying to be the sovereign of the country. Don't try it. And I go to them and say, you cannot do that. The Nigerian citizens are supreme. So if they are public servants and they're employed by you, they should sign an employment contract. Putting up their hands and swearing is not enough. They should sign a public contract. And in that contract, it should state, if I steal Nigeria's money, if I'm corrupt, I will be held to the full extent of the law and there'll be no plea bargaining. Because one of those gentlemen has the audacity to say he wants to return $6 billion naira to avoid prosecution. You want to what? Avoid prosecution? When you can return 6 billion, you have 60 billion at least. No, you must be prosecuted. So they must have those terms in that. And now we're talking about health. Before you know it, somebody has gone for medical leave. Before you know it, somebody has gone on medical vacation. Whose money are they spending? If they're spending their own money, fine. But I say that the concept of restrictive covenants should be put in their employment contracts. They say, if you're a public servant, you cannot go out of this country for medical services and treatment. Why? Because the lady at Bere, she can't even afford her own medication. The man at Dubelawo is trying to make a living and choosing between taking Panadol and eating. And then you take Nigeria's money and you go abroad. It's totally wrong. We must stop it. They must not be allowed. Because what does it show? It shows that they know the value of good medicine. They know the value of good health. Then they condemn us to this. No, it must not be allowed. And the next thing is, they have no confidence over the healthcare landscape on which they preside. I mean, when has the American president said, oh, I'm going to Nigeria to have my medical care? But why should he not? In those days, in the great UCH, we had people coming from abroad to receive care here. But they shouldn't go out. We must ban them. And ladies and gentlemen, they give us the budget. The budget is no longer enough. We need to know how the money is spent. There must be a public national account online where every dime kobo is accounted for. And ladies and gentlemen, we need to continue to engage in civic complaints, town halls, civic activities, writing to your legislators, calling them or shaming them on social media. I'm telling you, social media works. To yacht or not to yacht, 5 billion. An explanation was provided. interim largesse or no interim largesse, 2 million. An explanation was provided because people complained. So we cannot engage, please, respectfully, in malaise or watch Nigeria burn and fiddle like Nero did when Rome was burning. I beg of you, please let us engage in this civic responsibility. Thank you. To quickly go to this phenomenon called Japa, and they say, maybe because I'm jealous of them, everybody's talking about Japa. Like, Japa is not new. Grandfather, Wani Andrew. How many of you remember Andrew? Yes, thank you. And it was the same thing in the 1980s. Andrew was leaving because of this problem. So Japa is just now Andrew on steroids, and he's their grandfather. But right now, he's aggravated because of the security challenges, kidnapping, and people not being paid reasonably for the work that they're doing. So this reminds me of two instances in history. First of all, the deserted village. When I read this in Queen's School, in Form 1 in 1971, off school, okay. When I read that, I had the folly of childhood. And like, how can people leave their country? It's not possible. But what happened? The Industrial Revolution came and the agrarian life was displaced. And this gentleman, he lamented the loss of people. He loved his village. Says, sweet smiling village, loveliest of the lawn. Thy spots have fled and all thy charm is gone. Amid thy bowers, the tyrant's hand is seen, and desolation saddens all thy green. May desolation not sadden all Nigeria's green. And I bring these 2 points because history repeats itself. And then we had that potato blight in Ireland. And over a course of a few years, about 2 million people left that island and changed the complexion of that island forever. That the great John F. Kennedy became the president of the United States of America and not a top politician in Ireland. And with all due respect to all the alumni here of the great UCH, just to show you a few of our alum that are doing great things around the world, like every alum of UCH. So we have Dr. Professor Fumi Olokpade. She is a distinguished service professor of human medicine and human genetics. Lovely. We have she graduated Falusi. Dr. Dupe Shokumbi graduated Ogunaike, an award-winning pediatrician in Texas. And she became the first female chief of medical staff of her hospital. Now we have Professor Shade Obulesi, who's also an assistant professor of clinical medicine at George Washington and an associate director of clinical pediatric unit at National Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C. Now we have Margaret Wilson. She is the chief medical director and executive vice president of one of the largest insurance companies, medical insurance companies in the United States. And I know the men will say, what happened to the men? The men are coming. This is Dr. Philip Ozua, Chief Medical Officer of Montefiore Medicine. And wait for it. He donated $1 million, not 1 million naira, to our alumni fund. And then I saw this young man on television on CNN during COVID. And as we used to say in the great UCH, I hope they're still saying it there, Professor Ogubi, moving stuff. He was actually educating the world about COVID at the beginning. And I looked at his name. Whether it's from my hometown or not, but Nigeria. He's a Nigerian. I was so proud. Then I went for the Alumni Association meeting in South Carolina and was the guest speaker. And I said, no wonder he was moving stuff. He's UCH trained. So at this time, I would like to use this moment to thank all our teachers. If I miss any, I see Professor Desalu. If I miss anybody, please forgive me. Professor Adekunle and Professor Ajayi, representative of everybody here, you gave us an enormous gift, a debt which we cannot repay. And so that they do not say we at UCH, we don't have professional graces and we only clap for ourselves. This gentleman, Dr. Olutoye, surgeon like Professor Olaokpa, they figured out that a baby in utero had a mass. What did he decide to do? And I kept thinking, I kept thinking, did Dr. Akingbe do this? But I couldn't remember. They brought out the baby, he led the team. They brought out the baby, successfully removed the mass, implanted, because by that time it was an implantation, implanted the baby back, closed the mother up, and when it was time, the mother had a wonderful baby, and they're both doing well. He is from Obafemi Awolowo University. The question is, what would they have done to Nigeria if the conditions were conducive? So the Japa syndrome, as we've mentioned, this is a quote from a young doctor, Dr. Kunle Ibisola, I think that is his name, interviewed by the BBC. He now works for the National Health System in Scotland. So he didn't want to leave, but the conditions made him leave. And he said, when you have to see your senior colleagues not be able to drive to work or send their children to school, then there's a problem. And we know we can't blame people for going. When there's fright, you either flee or you fight. And some people chose to flee. It's a normal physiological response. And I put this slide up. So people should stop making diversionary statements. Yes, we have doctors, but what happens to the doctors? They leave, so we do not have doctors. And it led, in part, to another hospital closing some of its wards. I did read the retraction that Luth said this: it was not strictly due to Japa. That means, in part, it was due to Japa. So we have a problem with our doctors leaving. Now, President Tinubu is trying to address this, but he called for doctors to come back. With all due respect, as a supreme sovereign to the president, I would say they are not going to come back if the situation at Nigeria remains like this. What we need to do is improve for Nigeria, for Nigerians here, and then be able to entice those who have jackpot to jackpada. And the jackpot ramifications are many. You can see the number of doctors that have left. But please let me talk about a medical baton, a medical baton that we pass from generation to generation. It's a hierarchy in medicine. We have the privates and the recruits at the bottom. You do all the grunt work. That's the way medicine is. I did the grunt work, and every doctor here did the grunt work. Then you have the officers. You have the senior registrars, the registrars. Then you have some consultants, the junior ones. Then you have the top consultants, and then the people I call the capos, like the Professor Ajayis, that they dump down that information from top to bottom. That's how we learn medicine. But now what has JACPA done? It has decimated the bottom. Dr. Alawode I met recently when he was caring for my mom, and he said 90%, he's a senior registrar at UCH. He said 90% of the bottom are leaving. And Professor Olakba has complained to me about that. So when the bottom leaves, what happens? The top has to do what the bottom is supposed to do. And the top cannot engage in research and collaboration anymore to the extent that they used to want to. There's no professional development. There's no professional association. And the top, like Professor Oguni, they're retiring. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be left with a situation where we will go to our hospitals and there'll be nobody. So the Nurses Association says 75,000 nurses left over 5 years. 7,000 pharmacists have left in 2 years. You can see the number of doctors, and it's affecting our primary health centers. That Professor Olukoye Ransom Kuti says the bedrock of a great medical system. If we don't have the primary health centers, we are in trouble. But people still want to flee because of this flight syndrome. And they go and meet death, rape, indentured servitude. The question is Nigeria worse than that? To them, it is. So we need to improve Nigeria. And all that glitters, please do your homework. It's not gold. Because sometimes the law of the other side isn't what it promises to be. So prospective jackpots, be careful. Now I have to mention this. This immigration enticement, where if it's not United States, it's Australia, New Zealand, they are actively, because they know the intellect of Nigeria, they do. They talk about it. They know the work ethic of those who want to work. They know. So they want to exploit it to their own advantage. So what they do, come, we give you $10,000. This man has the, as they say, the gall to stand there and say he's going to give Nigerians 10,000 naira. And to Nigerians, it may say, oh, good to start me off. But really, you're going to pay taxes, water, light, electricity, and all those things. So that money may not go far. And an engineer here, they make him what? They make him a project manager, a supervisor. But look at this. If you are able to read this man has the temerity to say Nigerians should come and be constructed workers, laborers. Kilode. And he says he wants to train his locals for the jobs of the future. But we Nigerians, we should come and do what? Come and be construction workers there. We need to stop this as a matter of national policy. And my recommendation is this. We must have a Nigerian Citizen Attrition Investment Development Fund. For every doctor that they take away from Nigeria through this enticement, voluntary, we can't do anything about, but we need people to coordinate, a ministry to coordinate this immigration. So if a country asks for 10 doctors, they build us 10 of these hybrid operating rooms. Why not? It's an exchange. Or the money that the 10,000 that they're giving people, we don't want money, please, because of corruption. They should identify doctors, nurses, and other practitioners who they will give the 10,000 naira to as well in Nigeria. The salaries that they are going to pay, we should identify doctors, nurses, and other people going to be paid the amount. And they should bring also their technocrats. So it's an exchange. We do that, they are going to stop taking our people, because right now they're taking them for free. Please impress on the policymakers that we need to address this matter, or they will rob us of our kidney, liver, and our spleen and our eyesight. And what happens to the Nigerian doctor that's left? This is it. If I go and I see this doctor, I say, sister of the Hippocratic Oath, you are going to do some harm. Let's see if we can get another doctor. They're saying our doctors are overwhelmed. Those are here. WHO says 1 doctor to 600 patients. Look at our numbers. 1 doctor to 30,000 in the south and one doctor to 45 in the north. It's a challenge for them. And they're suffering not only physically, but with mental disease because of the pressure, because they're overwhelmed. And what happens? Some of them are committing suicide. So let's recap. We don't have any electronic medical records. We don't have the robust way to manage our data, and we send it into other clients. Okay? We've lost the trust of the people. They're not engaging in research in Nigeria, so we can't advance. Our doctors have left, and the doctors here are overwhelmed. How do we get advancement, ladies and gentlemen? It's going to be difficult. And this has been said also by Professor Otegbayo. He has said this as well. What I'd like to highlight is the negative perception. At a tribute session for a beloved aunt, Mrs. Oshin, who was a matron of UCH, one of the tributes said, whenever I saw her at UCH, I knew everything was going to be okay. I felt so good. I felt so happy. But that MC, that pesky MC came to tell the truth. He said, who? That was the UCH of yesteryears. As if that was not bad enough. He said, who will go to UCH for a headache today? Do you know that nobody put up their hand? I was tempted to put up my hand, but I said that would be self-serving. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the negative perception. We have to deal with this. We have to try as much as possible to increase the positive outcomes and engage in publicity of the public outcomes, like was done with Dr. Olutoye. That became so much news. Everybody knew about it in the United States of America. Everybody knew about it in the hospitals. So when UCH performs the wonders that it does under these restrictive conditions, their public address system must tell the world so we can reverse this public negative perception. Because if we don't have patients, we can't treat them, we can't advance population health, and we can't advance research. Now, we have these luxury items. Why are we talking about luxury in Nigeria? There should be a moratorium on these luxury items. Why? No be lie. This is the state of our primary health centers in some places in Nigeria. How can we be talking about luxury when we have this problem? And the common denominator was they were talking about their roofs collapsing. And that's why I've said some of our advancements have been lost. If there's a roof here, we'll be having roofs forever. So the roofs in the public health centers collapsing, that's a loss of advancement, ladies and gentlemen. Definitely, we cannot have this juxtaposed together. We need our citizens to complain. And one of the gentlemen involved in that primary health center said, we were taking deliveries in the rain. These were not deliveries of merchandise. They were our mothers laboring in vain. That is why, with maternal mortality, we are number 2 in the world. That is a terrible statistic to hold. Studies have shown that good hospitals, their architecture, help patient outcomes and staff morale. Definitely, that pregnant woman is not going to give birth in the rain. So the money that's being used for luxury items and medical vacation should be applied here. Politics also invades medicine. I must be, please, bear with me. All my senior colleagues, my junior colleagues. I must be that chairman of that department by Tulasi. And therefore, I may not engage in collegiate activity with others. We need to stop that and we need to do things positively. Let's change politics to a positive item. I'm going to need the microphone by the instrument there. So please watch this, and I'd like you to listen for the words data, visualization, and how they are projecting for the future. Thank you.
Manage the flow of patients into and through the hospital. The idea first came about when we were talking about knocking a wall down between two groups that needed to talk to each other in order to make patient flow most efficient. And believe it or not, even though they needed to talk about every single patient, through phones, faxes, emails, rather than just be able to talk to each other. That's what's new and different here. It's not just the command center. It's an entirely different approach to managing day-to-day operations.
If you really think about it, 125 years ago in 1889, when we opened the hospital, the founding partners and fathers and mothers of this system were really here, groundbreaking, and created a new way of delivering healthcare. And I think we're doing that today with this. We're really setting the stage for the next 125 years of Johns Hopkins medicine.
What GE brings to the table is two things in a big way. It's their technology and taking and using our data to present information in ways that we've never historically been able to present it. And it's taking data and pulling it together and giving it to me in one picture snapshot to be able to help us with predictions and be able to manage information differently.
This whole center is really about patient and family-centered care. We can
Can you hear me? Yes, thank you. So what they did at Johns Hopkins was this: they broke down a political barrier where groups were not talking to each other. And through those conversations, they came up with this really ingenious idea to have a command center. So why should it be only the people at NASA that have all this fun? To see the flow of patients and to identify where they could put patients and how patients could be moved from one level to the next, or the number of beds that were available. This helps with patient management and it helps with efficiency. And here, the lady was talking about visualization of data, taking that data from their computers and putting it on those touch screens. We need to collaborate with all our technologies, medical technologies, to help us create this. This would be fantastic for UCH to have, whether it's at the level of the hospital or the level of the department. It's something to look forward to, because at a point, you can figure out how many beds are available, how many patients need to move from ICU to step down, so you have better flow of the patients. Now, we can see some of our compounding issues. I've talked about a few of them. Right now, I just want to talk about the yield of investment. We are not gaining from the investment that we put in our children. The current generation of parents, they are training their children either here or abroad. But most of these children do not return to Nigeria. All that talent is being used in other countries, not here. So what are we reaping? Not much. Then we are funding the ecosystems of healthcare in other climes. When we go out for our treatment, and our politicians, they don't go one person. They'll take an entourage, like they recently took to the climate contingency of over 1,000 people went. And yeah, why? Why do you need 1,000 people to go from one country to a convention? Do you know why? Esther Code. And I said it. And now we have this situation where there's aggravated jeopardy. Like in Nigeria, we always talk about very important personalities. There's always a VIP at some event. So I have to talk about very important participants here. And there are those that if we do not include in the investment future, we shall be in trouble for. And there are children. This was discovered by Polish recently in December or so of last year. This is a school in Nigeria, where it's supposed to be a school. The children are on the floor in dirt, and God bless those teachers still trying to teach them. So we've lost all, we've not advanced in all the parameters I've spoken about, and we don't focus on education, and the children left cannot speak the language of the modern world. I'm not talking about English language, but don't understand what machine learning is, don't understand natural learning processes, don't know how to engage in data warehousing, have no idea what data mining is, then we're in trouble. So we need also to tell those of us in the corridors of power to please assist us with better education for our children. But ladies and gentlemen, all can never be lost because hope springs eternal. So we came across this lovely picture of these girls at Federal Government College, Shagamu. And they built this robot. I think they deserve a round of applause. Facing all the challenges that they had, they still built this robot. And they named it Okikiolu, Shagamu, and Kikisagi for a nickname. But what this shows is this intellect of Nigerians. I emphasize that despite the circumstances, that intellect will rise and show its true dimension. Also, UCH is still performing wonders, although sometimes they operate with a touch on their cell phones, and I'm not joking. They're performing miracles, despite there's no electricity, interrupted water. Let us, people in government, support them. Now I have a challenge coming to the end right now. Because WHO has said we top the world in malaria. But that's not new to anybody. We know that. But it's the deaths, and particularly the deaths of children under 5. We top the charts. So why are we not at the forefront of a medical vaccination for malaria? You know, during COVID, some of the other climes, their citizens were complaining when their leaders were saying, we have to send some vaccinations to the other developing countries. They're like, why? There were complaints. There may be a time when we won't get help from other countries. We need to create our own help here. So, UCH, this is my challenge to you. We need to create that medical vaccination. We need to work on a command center to make, apart from the other things I've spoken about, to make the processes more efficient. We need to look into an independent power supply so that the doctors can have uninterrupted power for their work. And we need to work and advance medical technology. And please, ladies and gentlemen, there's an information technology department at the UCH. And who knows under whose tenure as CMD this was inaugurated as the computer and data unit of UCH? Yes, the great Osuntokun. So, Professor Osuntokun knew. I told you he was a medical visionary, and I've come back to him at the end. In 1988, he knew the value of the computer and data and how they be integrally related to modern medicine. This is the medical vision I am talking about, not to be stationary, but to be always forward-looking. So my challenge to the Information Technology Department is, have you met that vision or have you exceeded it? I hope it is both, and I urge you to continue to develop homegrown technology to work in Nigeria for Nigerians, so our reliance on purchasing from other climes will drastically reduce. Thank you. So we've talked about all this that you see on the screen. We have all these problems. We have the fact that we have lost. There was a time where we were ECN, not NEPA, there was electricity. At any time, ECN one time was very rare. To disrupt electricity, what will it do? It will send you a very polite notice, because we are the supreme sovereign. They will tell you from the hours of XYZ to this, electricity will be disrupted and will be returned at this time. And before that time, it is restored. But now, no electric power forever. So we need to work on that independent power supply for UCH. So we've seen all these things, and I believe right now, that is the sukere-pakere malady that has engulfed Nigeria. It's under the bridge, it's over the bridge, the traffic is not moving anywhere, and therefore we are now in stage 4 of the malignancy of sukere-pakereism. It has taken over, because since Andrew's time, we've been dealing with this problem. If you have a patient, my beloved doctors, for 40 years, the same thing, we call it chronic, and it has pervaded all its systems with metastasis. Is that not cancer? And that's beyond stage 1, 2, 3, it's now stage 4. And we have this man who's representative of the Nigerian citizen. And that ball is the problem of sukere-pakere. If it falls forward, it falls on him. If it falls backward, it falls on the miniature infrastructure that we have. So what we have to do is arrest it in place and not let it metastasize anymore, and deal with it right there with all that we need. So I've recommended from the beginning and through certain things that we have to do. I will not repeat them because you can see them on the stage, on the screen. But what I would like to emphasize again is that citizen power. You have the power. We must start using it in an advanced way for advancement, please. And a cautionary tale. We must always be in charge of technology. Because one fine day, I was on my computer trying to do some research on when women could not vote. So I asked the computer through the query, give me the dates when women could not vote and the laws. It was in Bing. And I couldn't believe it. Bing came back with some laws and some things, and they said in that area where it talks, I'm sorry to see that you don't want women to vote. And I'm like, what? This computer is admonishing me? I didn't take that picture. But then I went, how dare you take an assumption from my query search? You cannot presume to know. Artificial intelligence, ladies and gentlemen, it came back and it apologized. I apologize if I made assumptions about your intentions. This is how smart these computers are right now, and we must always be in control. Now I said I'll try and sing like I first heard a professor emeritus of surgery sing Oni Dodo, Oni Moi Moi at a lecture, but I'm not singing that song. I'm going to try and sing John Lennon's song. It says, imagine if all this money was used for healthcare in Nigeria. You can join me. Oh, you may think I'm a dreamer, but I firmly believe that the intellect of Nigerians is not destined to be destroyed and limited by this sukere pakerism. And therefore, we must work collectively to ensure that it is not. So I ask you to please join hands with the Professor Osuntokun Trust and help us advance the frontiers of knowledge in medical sciences by allowing us to create a comprehensive plan that will deal with all these issues that I have hopefully not bored you with. But look at all that money. A snake swallowed 36 billion, really. And then I have this picture. Does anybody know who this is? Fantastic Shegu. That's why he's internationally acclaimed. He knows all things apart from law as well. So this is Hugo Weaver, Lord Elrond in that trilogy, Lord of the Rings. And why do I bring him up? Ladies and gentlemen, he's also my Abu. Yes, he was born in UCH. I know they lie. Yes. When I found out and I told my family, they said, no, no, no. Because I was looking for famous people born in UCH. But his parents did not leave Nigeria to go and give birth when he was due. They stayed here, confident of the great UCH, that their child would be delivered by competent doctors in a very good environment. So let us not preclude those who can be born here by not having good delivery. And on that note, in Magodo, some of our mothers go to Benin Republic to have their children. Are they citizens of Nigeria, just the questions, or citizens of Benin Republic? Are we losing them by indirect Jakwa? And now, since the beginning of this program, a very grateful patient A has been here since the commencement of the proceedings and wants to show their profound appreciation to Professor Osuntokun for saving them for the perils of elevated temperature in a minor child. So with that patient, please raise their hand. It's me. Ah, yes. 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 Professor Osuntokun, apart from being my dear uncle, he saved my life by knowing how to treat that pyrexia of unknown origin 52 years ago. He told me, don't worry, I know how that unique way he used to talk. Yemisia, don't worry, don't worry. We will get you out of here. Because I was agitated, I've been in the hospital for 1 or 2 weeks. All my classmates were in Queen's School having fun. And like, I don't want to be here, Uncle. Say, but you can't go. You still have this temperature. And he said, talk to your mom and dad, and we're going to try this. And later, when I became a medical student, they asked us during the small cases and during the small rounds, if you have an elevated temperature that doesn't subside, how will you treat it? I said, you use cryotherapy. My professor was very impressed. He thought I had read a lot. No, I didn't. And my classmates in the great 1982 said, sorry, sis, in the great 1982 said, yeah, we see, how did you know? Some of them came to me. I said, I didn't read it. I experienced it as a patient under the great professor. So, yeah. So as Lola said, I am indeed his daughter. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for your attention. I'd like to conclude by saying advancement in Nigeria in the medical realm is not only essential, it is doable if we work collectively to address all the parameters I have mentioned here today. Thank you very much.
Well, that was something. I wish to thank our most excellent speaker for that stimulating, interesting, educative, and frankly, a superlative lecture. Thank you so much. Well, that is a very, I have a couple of observations I wanted to make, especially about medical records. As you know, those of us based in the US, during when Obamacare was rolled out, that was one of the fundamentals of Obamacare, digitalizing and streamlining medical records. And I can tell you, I personally have benefited from it because my doctors in different parts of New Jersey and New York, all they have to do is put in my name, my social security number, and I'm telling you all the information, everything from different doctors is all in there. So this is something that I think, I don't think it's actually a priority that UCH must work on. The NIN number should be what, should activate something like this, have everybody's records on a digital or in the cloud or in a digital database. It's absolutely important. The other thing I was going to comment on, I was telling Dr. Oguni that recently the Food and Drug Administration just recently approved the therapy for sickle cell, treating sickle cell disease, whereby they do what they call genetic editing. I don't know what that is, but it sounded like it was great, and they've approved it, for the treatment of sickle cell. So we Nigerians, UCH, LUTH, all the medical research institutions, I really hope they can get their act together, and because there's so much that we can benefit from them, if they're able to push all this research and come out with results that benefit the average people and common, and in the treatment of common diseases. Also at this point, we normally have a presentation to the guest lecturer. However, she told us very nicely that she did not want to accept the award prize and money that comes with speaking for today's lecture. She asked that it be donated back into the trust and be used for other purposes towards the trust's aims and objectives. So we're very grateful. Usually we have a plaque, we'll send that later. Also, I have We have prizes for 2 people. We have this is for the best student in sciences at Price School Ado-Ekiti. This is for the best student graduating in sciences. And the first person I have, his name is Mr. Oluwatoba Emmanuel Praise. Is he here? Yes, please come forward. And his teacher, is his teacher with him? Congratulations, Mr. Oluwatoba Emmanuel Praise. This is for the check for your prize in sciences. We wish you all, the trust wishes you all the best and success in the future. Congratulations. Thanks very much. Also, we have a check prize for Makata Chibuzo. She's also the best student in the Benjamin Osuntokun quiz that was held by the College of Medicine. I'm not sure that she's available, she's here right now, but we'll pass this on to her or through the College of Medicine. But please give her a round of applause. So I'm going to call on our chairperson to give her closing remarks. Thank you.
Now afternoon. Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, wow, wow. You know, there's an adage that says, and I'll exaggerate a bit because normally it refers to the singular, but I will say that 2 lions cannot give birth to a goat. They can only give birth to a lioness that is a Renaissance woman par excellence. I mean, Yemisi, that was outstanding. That you engaged us extempore for over an hour. Creativity met professionalism, met intellect, met science. You use visuals, you use poetry, you use words. I mean, I knew it would be fantastic, but this was absolutely outstanding. And even the fact that us non-medics could be so engaged and could understand and enjoy this lecture, fantastic. I am so, so proud of you, my sister. Thank you. Thank you so much. She spoke so well that there's no reason for me to go into any longer, sort of trying to say what she said, but I'll just make a few points. She spoke about the sukere-pakere malady, and she explained it clearly to us, using the analogy of the traffic that we all understand so well, that you stay in one spot, and when you move, it's as if you're even moving backwards. So we now understand exactly what she means by that. She referred to the 3 Ps, particulars, participants, and practice. Out of the particulars, what I will take is what she has exemplified so much with that testimony she gave. Thinking outside the box. That was what Professor Kaide Osuntokun did at that time. That is what we need. That is what education can give us. When you think outside the box, you save a life. Can you imagine if you did not think of that and you were not here? Can you imagine the loss to humanity? Thinking outside the box is so important. Then in terms of participants, she referred to the patients, the subjects, the doctors, the government. This is where it concerns all of us. You spoke extensively about our civic responsibility. We need to be able to speak up. We need to be able to encourage those who want to go into politics. They don't want people like us. So we need to ensure that we encourage all those people like us who are going to go there with integrity, who are going to go there and make a difference. We have to make sure they get there. Absolutely. We need to face the issue of corruption. We need to examine ourselves. I love that fact about giving us exams, that corruption exam. Are you a thief? And it's not only the people who are stealing millions. Are you a thief if you take the letterhead home from your company? Are you a thief if you steal the time of your company? So are you a thief? Let us all as Nigerians ask ourselves. And you know, one person at a time, one little action at a time, this country is going to get to where we all pray it will get to. Civic responsibility, let's always make sure we go and vote. Let's always make sure we hold people accountable to do what they have said they will do. The Japa syndrome, everybody is experiencing it. I mean, in our businesses, in the hospitals. My mom was in hospital for a short while recently, and it was one of the best hospitals in Lagos, but yet it was glaring that the doctors and nurses were no longer there. And then she has a nurse who's, two nurses now who come alternative days. And I was talking to one of them and I was asking her what her plans were. She said, "Ma, the only thing I want to do is Japa. Don't want me back to Pema, Munloniye." And I looked at this extremely efficient, hardworking individual and thought, we're losing her. She'll become 75,001 of all these nurses who have gone. What are we going to do about it? I wish that you had given us more, more ways that we can actually counter this. But I know that that would be an entire lecture for another day. So I'm grateful that you have given the university some tips and some recommendations of what they can do. And I know that they're represented enough in this lecture today to be able to take away some of these ideas and hopefully implement them. And I loved the photograph of the Shagamu girls with Kiki Sagi. There is so much hope. I work with entrepreneurs a lot. I see the young people of Nigeria, passionate, committed, intelligent, who just want to do great things if only they had the support of the government. But if they don't have the support of the government, what people like us will continue to do is in our own spheres of influence, do what we can to encourage them and let them get to where they want to be. I thank you for saying that UCH is still doing great things. And honestly, working with what they have to work with, still being able to achieve the things they do. We do congratulate and celebrate all of you. You know, after listening to you, it was really a matter of, should I be depressed at the end of this or should I be elated? But we will be elated. In spite of it being stage 4 cancer, we know that we can overcome. And we know that with citizen empowerment and, as you've said, technology, utilizing technology to the best, and joining hands with initiatives such as the Benjamin Oluwakayode Trust Foundation, all of us can be a part of moving this place forward and getting out of that sukere bakere malady. So again, I want to thank all the trustees. I want to thank Auntie. I am ashamed to say this is probably the first one that I've attended. Ariella, my sister, is faithful. She comes every time. But I am absolutely convinced that this has been the best memorial lecture of all time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. We're coming close to the end of the formalities. If you permit me one diversion, the representative from Christ School came up to me and said that we actually missed out one of their prize winners. And it was a prize winner for the best science student for 2023. The young man who was celebrated was the best student in the commercial subject. But I know Akinoluwa David is the best science student, and that is a student after my late father's heart. So please come up and be recognized.
Congratulations to the young man, and your check will follow shortly, all right?
Thank you. I'm going to call on my sister, Remi Shoyowo, who will do both the vote of thanks and the closing prayers. And then without any further ceremony after that, we will have lunch and get to talk to each other slightly more informally. I'm going to sign off here. I'm not going to come back on stage because you've probably seen enough of me anyway. So thank you all for coming, and see you later. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much for sitting through the lecture, which wasn't difficult at all. It was, I think, Mrs. Akios has used all the superlatives that we could possibly come up with, but I'm going to add a few more. Passionate, riveting, insightful, and truthful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sister Yemisi. God bless you. It was, I had some comments from people listening on Zoom. We had about 140 people on Zoom. And some of the comments were, I'm going to read it out. Somebody said, I'm so grateful I created time to join. It was an impressive paper by the guest speaker. Somebody else said, I'm grateful to God. We still have such people in Nigeria. I think that probably says it all. Thank you all very much for attending this lecture. Thank you. I'd like to probably first start with thanking my mom again, the former chairman of the B.O Osuntokun Trust, who has held forth for the last 28 years. Thank you, Professor Oguni, a very faithful mentee of my father. Thank you to the new chairman of the B.O Osuntokun Trust, my sister Lola. Thank you to our chairman, Mrs. Yewande Zacchaeus. Yes, you are qualified to be here. Thank you so much for all your comments, for your speech. It was really awesome. Thank you to my darling Auntie Runke, representing the Vice Chancellor of the University of Ibadan. Thank you so much, Auntie Runke Bayroju. And thank you once again to Sayemisi Koya for that absolutely awesome delivery and the content and the context that you gave us today on the Sukerere Bakerere malady in Nigeria. Thank you. Fela would have been very proud of you as well. And I also want to say thank you to the 140 people on Zoom, including the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, Professor Folashade Ogushola, who stayed throughout the lecture as well. But I also want to thank every single person here. I don't want to mention names because I will miss out some names and I don't want to offend everyone, but each and every one of you is really valued. We really, really appreciate your presence, the time you've taken out to be here today. And we hope that you went away with just as much as the guest speaker intended that you do. At this point in time, I'm going to close and just to say thank you for helping us to make this event such a huge success. It's been going on for a while now, and we intend to continue to make sure that it gets even better each and every year. Once again, thank you. Finally, I want to thank God, the first and the last, the reason that we are here, because he's the creator of my wonderful, wonderful father, and of course, each and every one of our creators, to thank him for all that he has done, for the provision, for the protection, for all that he has done for this family and all of yours as well over the years. We're grateful, and we know that Nigeria, the Nigeria of our dreams, we will achieve it. It will be achieved in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. If we can just bow our heads as we pray, I want us all to sing the song, O Lord our God, in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. And so, our Father and our Lord, we just want to say thank you again. We appreciate you so much. We know that even if we each had 1,000 tongues and we were to thank you from today till the end of eternity for all you have done for us, it will not be enough. We appreciate you. We thank you. We give you all the glory for the success of this lecture. We ask, Lord, that you continue to walk with us and be with us and continue to manifest yourself and your power each and every year through these lectures in the mighty name of Jesus. Our Lord and our God, we commit into your hands everyone who has attended physically as they return back to their homes, that you will go with them and no one will have a reason to say, oh, if I had known, I should not have come. But everyone will look back on this day and know that truly it's the day that the Lord has made and a day in which they were greatly blessed. Father, Lord, we commit the rest of the year into your hands and we ask that you make this 2024 the best year for each and every one of us and for Nigeria. It may seem as if that's a long shot, but that's why you are God. There's nothing that you cannot do. Father, we bless you, we praise you, we thank you again in Jesus' most precious and mighty name. Amen. Thank you all so much, and God bless you.
Stand, stand. Everybody has a day. Take on tomorrow. It's a bright day. Anybody. Bring us together. God will be fair. Bring us together. God will be fair. One love inside of me. We just let it be. Take on any day. When love is only out to me. Never need worry if we just let it be. Because we get living in a world, struggle and stay in a life. We put together, living in a world, struggle and stay in a life.
Who be the next fire? For the emotions, body, and those said it's sweet, wonder the head of peace, but I rest in peace in the belly of the beast. You guys are on fire in the middle of the night, sucking on in the blood. It's back to rap time. Yeah, said it's sweet, boy, the head of peace, but I rest in peace in the belly of the beast. Everywhere, only one time. Everywhere, scream that no one is survive. Everywhere, die. Only so you can be. Everywhere, be. Only so you can die again and be born again from the sandy sea. On the borderline, who will be the next fire? Only one shot's body at the side. Hey, it's an infector, under the net of pizza. But I rest in peace in the belly of the beast. Oh, so the idol, set my life still before. So the idol, it told me the morning was a never. So the idol,
'cause every man will be good. So the ano, I'm calling to his word. You know what? You told me that a motto was an error. Nights long and the streets are very cold. The moment I was beaten, one of those moments survive. How can I survive when more than one shot by my side? More than good in the middle of the night. You don't send me more. It's faster right time. Hey, you said a freezer, boy, they didn't have no pizza. But now you rest in peace. In the belly of a beast. So Diano, said my love still be go. So Diano, I can hear your spirit calling. I can hear it, Diano. In dollar jar we go by the. So Diano, in my home now in America, I get the time singing the same thing. Oh, yeah, oh, I'm not about we I'm not going to want you. And give my love, oh, yeah, oh, I'm not about we and you tell it to me, about me, about now, and give my love, hey, and give my love, and give my love. Honorary, keep on in my city, I gave you, I'm you. Honorary, keep on in my city, I gave you, I'm you. On second of one day, keep on in my city, I gave you, I'm you. Honorary, keep on in my city, I gave you, I'm you. Ibadi masi titi agemi amio wakwako obi tembe uja ekumote uja kulungu oh yeah yeah eche kachijo anale so so oh, yeah, make me dance some dandy and please. So give dancing, let's not some dance. So, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh. Oh yeah, jump, jump, jump. Oh yeah, video. Oh yeah, we dance so. Oh yeah, oh. Kunubu, 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 kunubu. Oh yeah, yeah. Kunubu, kunubu, kunubu. Oh yeah, yeah. Kunubu, 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 kunubu. Oh yeah, yeah. Kunubu, 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 kunubu. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, bigger, 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 oh yeah, bigger. And you're the man I give oh yeah, the bell, and you're the children where, oh yeah, the bell. I see this new year, make it on your mind. Ah, ah, ah. Oh yeah, Jack, oh yeah, Leo. Wherever I go, wherever you are, baby, baby, you'll never find a way. You love ways on my mind. Wherever I go, wherever you are, baby, baby, you'll never find a way. You love ways on my mind. Baby, baby, don't never find a way. You love ways on my mind. As so many people come up here, we want you love the boy you want me love. Hey, love the boy you want me love. People, 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 let's you know, if I do not know what you want me to, and none of what you want me to, people, 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 if I told your love, I'm my door, see me so well. My door, see me so well. Because my door, see me so well. If I told your love, I'm not anymore. My door, see me so well. Ìdùnmọ̀rè sọ̀rọ̀ mi dàgbọ̀, mo wá ṣọpẹ́. Ètò ìyá. Ètò ìyá. Ìdùnmọ̀rè sọ̀rọ̀ mi dàgbọ̀, mo wá ṣọpẹ́. Ètò ìyá. Ṣẹ́gun wáyọ̀ mi, bàbá ṣẹ́gun wáyọ̀ mi. Ìbánújẹ́ o, jẹ́ kó jiná sílé mi. Wá mú mi dùn, bàbá onílé ayọ̀ mi. Ọ̀nà mi, má jẹ́ kó pàdélẹ́kùn, má jẹ́ kó pàdélẹ́kùn, má jẹ́ kó pàdélẹ́kùn, má jẹ́ kó pàdélẹ́kùn.
Majango, 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 oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, oh, boy, my Elena Modiem, Modiem, Elena Modiem, me for the jamo. Elena Modiem, Modiem, Elena Modiem, me for the jamo. Mowadu Beriano, Papa, Modiem, Mowadu Berioni, Papa, Modiem. Mowadu Beriano, Papa, Modiem. Papa, hot love my baggy, hot love my baggy, hot love my baggy, hot love my baggy. It want the gandhi baby. It want the gandhi baby. Ba 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 ba. Vamos de más un no. Abi o mira. People Matilora, Madori, Bosori, Eladabi, Modubel, Papa, Bosori, Eladabi, Modubel, Papa, Bosori, Eladabi, Modubel, Papa, Bosori, Eladabi, Modubel, Papa, mio. Ìyàwó àsìkò, pápá mi ó, ìyàwó afẹ́fẹ́. Pápá mi ó, ìyàwó àsìkò. Pápá mi ó, ìyàwó afẹ́fẹ́. Ìfẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ tó pè kò máa tẹ́ lọ́wọ́. Ìfẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀ tó pè kò máa tẹ́ lọ́wọ́. Lekma, 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 papa mi jo. Lekma, 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 papa mi jo. Lekma, 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 papa mi jo. Lekma, 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 papa mi jo. Lekma, oh no, only tèmi, ọ̀rẹ́ mi, olólùfẹ́. Ojúbọ dáadáa-dáàlì. Lọ́lọ́dúnwá kò máa sọ́dá tó yẹ wá. Ó tó tó sí ọ̀rẹ́kùnrin tèmi. Ọ̀rẹ́ mi, olólùfẹ́. Ojúbọ ládá torí ẹni. Lọ́lọ́dúnwá kò máa sọ́dá tó yẹ wá. Mo ready gan, mo ready kejì mi. Gírígírí ló ṣe mí, ẹ bọ́dọ̀ bá mẹ́fẹ́ mi. Gbòǹgbò ṣòmùdé kan mọ́, ẹ wá bá mi hàn. Ọ̀rọ̀ ìfẹ́ ńlá bí àtọ́hùn ni. Nínú ọmọ tí mo fẹ́, ó fẹ́ náà rẹ̀. Bíbí kan rí kan mi, ọmọ ẹ̀dẹ̀ wà mú. Mo fẹ́ bá ẹ darúgbó, mo fẹ́ bá ẹ dalẹ̀. Wọ́n ní mo fẹ́ máa jírí lójoojúmọ́ ayé mi. ìwé kíkọ́ láti sí ọ̀rọ̀ àti àtà òyìnbé òyìnbé iṣẹ́ rẹ̀ iṣẹ́ ilẹ̀ wa ẹni kò síṣẹ́ á máa jáde ìwé kíkọ́ láì sí ọ̀rọ̀ àti àtà òyìnbé òyìnbé iṣẹ́ ilẹ̀ wa ẹni kò sí tẹ́ a máa jáde lẹ́pà bàbá mi jókòó lẹ́pà bàbá mi jókòó lẹ́pà. Májò síbi tó ń bẹ̀. Májò síbi tó ń bẹ̀. Ìgbà tó yóò lọ́wọ́ lábẹ́ nìkan. Májò síbi tó ń bẹ̀. Ìgbà tó yóò lọ́wọ́ lábẹ́ nìkan. Májò síbi tó ń bẹ̀. Ìgbà tó yóò lọ́wọ́ lábẹ́ nìkan. Májò síbi tó ń bẹ̀. Ìgbà tó yóò lọ́wọ́ lábẹ́ nìkan. Májò síbi tó ń bẹ̀. Ẹ bá mi sọ fún títí yẹn kó máa ń lọ. Ó ti sọ wípé fáyì nàbà. Ẹ bá mi sọ fún bébí yẹn kó máa ń lọ. Ó ti sọ wípé fáyì tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀. Bébí jọ̀wọ́ máa ń lọ. Ọmọdé ṣe bí bébí náà. Ó lọ́jọ́ kò pé sáyà rẹ̀.
Nígbà òun ló gbà á, ó fẹ́ máa gbò ó. Ṣé mo máa sọ pé agbègbè fún ẹ̀yẹ lọ́mọ gbé nǹkan mi padà? Wọ́n ń lu ìgbà. Nísìnyí tó bá fáṣọ, ó máa wà. Ẹ̀sìn rà mí.
Yeah, I think that was calm, you know. Back doesn't matter. But I was quite sure we were doing it. I was quite sure. Yeah,
time na money, eh? Time na money. Time na money, oh. Time na money. Give some time well. No waka waka. No gossip gossip. This one lost the man. Give some time well. Too bad nothing. Money don't come from heaven. Too bad nothing. Money go. Now you want that they tell you so. I keep on a bed. Don't need yo. I keep on a bed. Don't need yo. But not bad. Don't need yo. I keep on a bed. Don't need yo. Baby, baby, my all the boys they don't go that was she got the don't go waka baby, baby, gonna come that baby. I go tell my mama, and I go tell my papa, and I go tell her, say, Waka waka baby, baby, waka waka baby, waka waka baby, baby somebody, someone, if I miss a fool, baby, and go my double. What's something made money, then, if I miss a fool, papa, and go my double. What's something made money, then, baby, someone, go my double. I'm not a cherry, baby, oh, not your one, oh, baby, I am. Oh, I feel me, no, not to. Only do, only one, only do, only one. The party goes on, one way back there, and one goes on, they like the idea. Commissioner to be no sorrow, ọlọ́pàá tó bínú sanwó, àwọn ẹlẹ́wọ̀n máa bínú yọ̀bẹ, ẹwà kọjá ní láfíàjì, ọlọ́pàá tó bínú sanwó, lẹ́kítọ́rà tó bínú sanwó, àwọn ọmọ iléèwé máa bínú gbé ìbọn. Ẹwà kọjá ní láfíàjì. 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 Baby, mi jọ̀wọ́ o, jẹ́ ká jọ máa gbádùn. Olómi jọ̀wọ́ o, jẹ́ ká jọ máa gbádùn. Àyà tó mọ gáàgì ló ṣe gé ọkọ rẹ̀. Tẹ́tẹ́ tó bá tán, ẹ kó má má ṣe bá. Olómi jọ̀wọ́ o, jẹ́ ká jọ máa gbádùn. Sisi mi jọ̀wọ́ o, jẹ́ ká jọ máa gbádùn. Àyà tó mọ gáàgì ló ṣe gé ọkọ rẹ̀. Tẹ́tẹ́ tó bá tán, ẹ kó má má ṣe bá. Ìdùnnú náà ní fọkàn káyà pọ́pọ́ fẹ́ ọkọ. Oríire ló jẹ́ báyà, ó bá mọ̀ fẹ́ ọkọ o. Ó ní tèmi ò báyà, bí kẹ́sì fọ́n tèmi o. Ìlọsíwájú ọgọ́, ó fẹ́ lọ́wọ́ àyà o. Ìlọsíwájú àyà o, ó fẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ọmọ o. Ìlọsíwájú ọgọ́, ó fẹ́ lọ́wọ́ àyà o. Ìlọsíwájú àyà o, ó fẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ọmọ o. Baby Joe, sisi má baby òkè, olólùfẹ́ mi jọ̀wọ́, jẹ́ ká jọ̀wọ́. Baby yo, baby má baby òkè, olólùfẹ́ mi jọ̀wọ́. Má baby ló máa bí kẹ́, Àṣàkẹ́ Bàṣà. Má baby ló máa bí kẹ́, Àṣàkẹ́ Bàṣà. Má baby ló. Àdùkẹ́ o, Àdùkẹ́ o. Má baby ló. My baby, no, I began, I do get my shine. My baby, no, I get, I do get my shine. My baby, go. kò sọ́mọ́ tó lè dá, kò sí wá tó lè mú, kò sọ́nà tó lè mọ̀, tó lè fi táyé lọ́wọ́. Kò sọ́mọ́ tó lè dá, kò sí wá tó lè mú, kò sọ́nà tó lè mọ̀, tó lè fi táyé lọ́wọ́. Lọ́jọ́ tá a bá bímọ tuntun sílé ayé, tó nílé tàlejò, ló máa kí ní fún ewu. Lọ́jọ́ tá a bá bímọ tuntun sílé ayé, tó nílé tàlejò, ló máa kí ní fún ewu. Ọ̀tá ọmọdé bẹ̀rẹ̀ láti ibi ìrákòrò, dáadáa ni ló jẹ́ nù. Ó ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ ọ̀tá níbí, dáadáa ni ló bí nù. Ó ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ ọ̀tá níbí, ó ti bọ́ sọ́wọ́ ayé. Tọmọ náà bá ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí í rìn, tó bá lẹ́gbẹ́ tí wọ́n jọ ń ṣeré láàrin àdúgbò, tí òbí rẹ̀ bá lè ra kẹ̀kẹ́ fún, ó ti bọ́ sọ́wọ́. Ọmọ ní kó gbé wá, lọ́jọ́ fi ṣeré, tó bá ní rárá, ó ti dọ̀tá wọn, ó ti bọ́ sọ́wọ́ ayé. Wọ́n á ní máa gbé kẹ̀kẹ́ lọ, a ò bá ẹ ṣeré mọ́. Ọmọ náà láti bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí í rìn, tó bá lẹ́gbẹ́ tí wọ́n jọ ń ṣeré láàrin àdúgbò, tí òbí rẹ̀ bá lè ra kẹ̀kẹ́ fún, ó ti bọ́ sọ́wọ́ ayé. Tọ́mọ ní kó gbé wá, lọ́jọ́ fi ṣeré, tó bá ní rárá, ó ti dọ̀tá wọn, ó ti bọ́ sọ́wọ́ ayé. Wọ́n á ní máa gbé kẹ̀kẹ́ lọ, a ò bá ẹ ṣeré mọ́. Lọ́jọ́ máa gorí ọjọ́, tọmọ náà láti dàgbà, tó bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní lédè ìwé, tó mójú sí ẹ̀kọ́ rẹ̀, tó ń ṣe déédéé. Bí wọ́n bá ṣe dánwò, tó bá ṣe kò kíní, ó ti dọ̀tá ó ní kò kẹfà. Wọ́n á fún lórúkọ, wọ́n á lọ́mọ tíṣà ni, ó ti bọ́ sọ́wọ́ ayé. Àsẹ̀yìnwá àsẹ̀yìnbọ̀, ọmọ ọjọ́ sì bẹ̀rẹ̀ iṣẹ́. Ọ̀gá ilé iṣẹ́, ó débi iṣẹ́ lákòókò. Lákòókò mẹ́jọ ló ń ṣe déédéé, ipa iṣẹ́ jẹ́ àwọn ọ̀lẹ́ àpàjò. Wọ́n á fún lórúkọ, wọ́n á náà mọ máa ní ìṣàní, ó ti bọ́ sọ́wọ́ ayé. Ọmọ tó ṣiṣẹ́ dédé, ó yẹ kó lásìkò ìgbádùn, ìgbà tí ó fi jáde. ọmọ tó ti tẹ́lẹ̀ ó yẹ kó lásìkò ìgbádùn ìgbà tí ó fi jayé. Tó bá lọ sí pátì ibi tí wọ́n jẹ gbádùn, wọ́n máa ní kí ló mú, tó bá ní Coca-Cola, wọ́n á ní kó máa yé jẹ, jẹ̀díjẹ̀dí ló máa bá. Ọmọ tó ti tẹ́lẹ̀ ó yẹ kó lásìkò ìgbádùn. Tó bá lọ sí pátì níbi tí wọ́n jẹ gbádùn, wọ́n máa ní kí ló mú, tó bá ní Coca-Cola, wọ́n á ní kó máa yé jẹ, jẹ̀díjẹ̀dí ló máa bá. Tó bá tún wá lọ jẹ́ bàbá kò ní fàájì tó ń jayé dé. Champagne pẹ̀lú ṣìnà ló fi hàn mú. Ẹni kì í sìgá, Stalaga, Calorosi, ẹni kì í sìgá pẹ̀lú mọ́tà Guinness, jẹ̀díjẹ̀dí, Fanta, pẹ̀lú Paralamu, àwọn ẹ̀dá àdàmọ̀ wá fún lórúkọ. Ọtí tàlà kọ́ bí owó rẹ̀ mú, ó ti bọ́ sọ́wọ́ ayé. Tó bá tún wá lọ jẹ́ àgbàmà tó lọ sọ àsìkò tó tún lójú obìnrin wá fún lórúkọ. Ìgbéraga ti pọ̀ jù, kò mọ̀jú obìnrin lọ. Lọ́la lápọ̀ bí fowó rẹ̀ ṣe, ó ti bọ́ sọ́wọ́ ayé. Tó bá tún wá lọ jẹ́ bàbá òní sùúrù, tó kàwé tó gboyè rẹpẹtẹ, tó ń dọ́gbọ́n jayé, tí kì í sáàmọ̀, tí ó fẹ́ràn obìnrin, àwọn ẹ̀dá àdàmọ̀ wá fún lórúkọ. Alákọ̀ọ́rí àbádá ń ṣe lójoojúmọ́. Ilé ayé pàdé ẹni lò, ọmọ aráyé ẹsẹ̀ rẹ̀ wò. Àfi káwọn wà rere lèrè ló pé. Ọmọ aráyé ẹsẹ̀ rẹ̀ wò. Tó bá tún wá lọ jẹ́ bàbá òní sùúrù, tó kàwé tó gboyè rẹpẹtẹ, tó ń dọ́gbọ́n jayé, tí kì í ṣàmọ̀, tí ó fẹ́ràn obìnrin, àwọn ẹ̀dá àdàbọ̀ wá fún lórúkọ. Alákọ̀ọ́bí àbádá ń ṣe lójoojúmọ́. Ilé ayé ń pàdé ẹni lò, ọmọ aráyé ẹsẹ̀ rẹ̀ wò. Àfi káwọn wà rere lèrè ló pé. Ọmọ aráyé ẹsẹ̀ rẹ̀ wò. Pàdé ẹni lò, ọmọ aráyé ẹsẹ̀ rẹ̀ wò. Àfi káwọn wà rere lèrè ló pé. Ọmọ aráyé ẹsẹ̀ rẹ̀ wò. When you look come on like you were 10 past 4. When you want the scarring thing in all these love. Dr. Man flexes thing them one by one. And the book surprise you on the Lord has done. Sing it, I'm the blessed thing them one by one. I'm the blessed thing one Lord has done. I'm the blessed thing them one by one. And it will surprise you what the Lord has done. Oh, so much mother for me. I shall do mother for me. Oh, so much mother for me. I shall do mother for me. Lord, let's see on my feet. Hey, let's see on my feet. Thank you. If you find me 95, I don't care. If you find me 95, I don't care. If you find me for that drive by, I don't care. If you find me for that drive by, I don't care. If you find me from Pusha, now you sabi. If you find me from Pusha, I don't care. If you marry anybody, now you sabi. If you marry anybody, I don't care. Go leo, owó kan lóde. 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 Obìnrin kígbe, ọkùnrin kígbe, àdúgbò kọ̀ǹkébé lówó. Bámúra kẹ̀kẹ́ máa ká ẹ̀mọ́lé. Bámúra kẹ̀kẹ́ máa ká ẹ̀mọ́lé. Mo bèrè títí wọn ò jíṣẹ́ fún ẹni. Ìbọn ló pa o, náírà ló pa yẹn. Ìrọ̀lẹ́ o, owó pọ̀ lóde. Ìrọ̀lẹ́ o, owó pọ̀ lóde. Obìnrin kígbe, ọkùnrin kígbe. Kálukú kọ̀ǹkébé gbogbo. Bámúra kẹ̀kẹ́ máa ká ẹ̀mọ́lé. Bámúra kẹ̀kẹ́ máa ká ẹ̀mọ́lé. Mo bèrè títí wọn ò jíṣẹ́ fún ẹni. Ìbọn ló pa o, náírà ló máa yẹ. Bébí ó ní pépérépé, pépérépé. Ṣìbí ó ní ṣúgà, 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 ṣúgà. Bébí ó ní ṣoko mílò, wálé o, ṣoko mílò. Bébí ó ní pépérépé. Baby, oh, the sugar, 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 sugar. Tania do oh, Tania do oh, Tania do oh, Tania do oh, Simba, baby. Simba baby, but I'm the Simba baby, say I'm the Simba baby, but I'm the but I'm sharing there. But I'm sharing but I'm sharing there. But I'm sharing there. Boom, back away there. I'm sharing there. Boom, back away there. But I'm sharing there. It needs to come with me. But I'm being boom, back away there. But I'm it needs to come with me. But I'm being back away there. But I'm being I am your dad, oh yeah. I am your dad, TV baby. I am your dad, oh yeah. I am your dad, TV baby. Baby, only This the only sugar, sugar, hey. Sugar, sugar, baby, only chocolate, Mateo, chocolate, baby, only, baby, 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 only sugar, 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 baby, only chocolate, baby, I know we're on the way. From me, I love you. From me, I you today. If I never before, I don't run anymore. If we sing never back on that way, now make me for another day. You come down from my love, I don't know. Take back the next my love. You must be a fool. I say, my never before. I don't run any boy. If you see never that from that way, not if we for another day. Every day I get you more. I know we're on the way. From me, I love you more. I'm here today. If I never before, I don't run anymore. If you see never that from that way, not if we for another day. Got to make it lion. What I got my cigar, from a challenge this one that's mystery. I say my name before. I don't run any boy. The busy number on the way. Now we baba the day. So, if you face me, I face it. Hold me, I hold, wrap me, I wrap it. Do me, if you face me, I face it. Hold me, I hold me, I wrap it. Do me, if you face me, I face it. Hold me, I wrap me, I wrap it. Do me, I go to you solo. Where they go, they know I'm not for sure. Oh, do you remember me? I'm the little bird that couldn't fly. I know you know that I was gonna die. See me now, over sunlight. See me high up in the sky. Because they get me more money, no more humility. And when they move on, all on the royalty. They begin to stop your eye. They make something yangana with it. Yangana to do not with it. To do not togi. Knocking out with it, knocking out for trouble. So them world goes not so, love it, not so when they go, not so, no, they do. Them world goes not so, love it, not so when they go, not so, no, they do. Oh, Samina, waka, Samina, Samina, waka, Samina, Samina, waka, Samina, you don't eat my car, we go right there. I sit down by my car, we sit back there. Tell me you don't eat my car, we go back there. My go down better, we go back there. Mama, make we follow your footsteps. Give special love to your children. them to know. They and the leaders of tomorrow. It will sound like evil intended. What's about my band and we know? About boy, you don't spoil your good day. That don't about boy, you don't spoil your good day. Nigeria, now we go to. Yeah, my friend, that's most follow. Yeah, mama, get your mama. Life go dance on for you. Yeah, yeah. And you see on the borderline, who be the next fire? For the emotions, body on those sides. Said the traitor, wonder than had no pizza, but I rest in pizza in the belly of the beast. You guys are on fire in the middle of the night, sucking on the river. It's back to rock for time. Yeah, said the traitor, wonder than had no pizza, but I rest in pizza in the belly of the beast. Everywhere we only one time, everywhere scream that no one is survive, everywhere time, only so you can be, everywhere be, only so you can die again and be born again from the sandy sea on the borderline. Who be the next fire? Only one shot's body at the time. Hey, you said the traitor, wonder the net of pizza, but I rest in pizza in the belly of the beast. Oh, so diablo, se malandros still before. So diablo, you told me the mother was a never. So diablo, cause every man will be judged. So diablo, according to his word. You know what? You told me that the mother was a never. Nights long and the streets are very cold. The power that we beating under the strongest survive. How can I survive with only one shot by my side? For the good in the middle of the night. If you don't send me more, it's about to rock the time. Hey, you said a freezer, boy, didn't have no pizza, but now you rest in pizza. In the belly of a beast, no. So Diano, se malandros till people. So Diano, I can hear your spirit calling. I can hear it, Diano. And now Jarro, we go by the. So Diano, in my home now in America, I get the time singing the thing. Oh, oh, I'm not about we and now go so much. And the man no no. Oh, oh, I'm not about we and and you just told me about it. About me, about and the man no no. Any man don't know, any man don't know. Honorary, people in my city, I am you, I'm you. Honorary, people in my city, I am you, I'm you. On second one, people in my city, I am you, I'm you. Honorary, people in my city, I am you, I'm you. Iboni ma si titi ayemi ayo. Wapopo. Obi bebe. Udia. Ekumote. Udia. Uluku. Oh yeah yeah. Eche kanti Joanna to to. Oh yeah, make me dance some dandy and movie. So you dancing, let's dance some dance. So, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh. Oh yeah, Jojo. Oh yeah, video. Oh yeah, we dance so. Oh yeah, oh. Kunubu, 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 kunubu. Oh yeah, yeah. 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 Oh yeah, bigger. 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 And you're the man I give over. Oh yeah, the bell. And you're the children where. Oh yeah, the bell. See, Messi is the yeah. Make it not go by. Ah, ah, ah. Oh yeah, Jojo. Oh yeah, video. Oh yeah, the presentio. That the amo. Oh yeah, yeah. 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 Wherever I go, wherever you are, baby, baby, don't ever find a way. You love way on my mind. Wherever I go, wherever you are, baby, baby, don't ever find a way. You love way on my mind. Baby, baby, don't ever find a way. You love way on my mind. As so many people come up go, imagine love for you want me love. Hey, love for you want me love. Before, 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 before. Essa biribiri gamofigo, imagine no go you want it up, and no go you want it up before, 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 Elena Modiem, Papa Modiem, Elena Modiem, Papa Modiem, Elena Modiem, Papa Modiem, Elena Modiem, Papa Modiem, Momadu Mariano, Papa Modiem, Momadu Marioni, Papa Modiem. Ọmọdé máa dúpẹ́ orin àná. Àbí òmíràn gbà. Kò sẹ́ni tó lè ṣe ṣe wọ́n. Bí mo bá ti lówó rà. Àlórí mi mo lè. Ó ṣoríire o. Ẹlẹ́dàá mi mo dúpẹ́ o. Bàbá ó ṣoríire o. Ẹlẹ́dàá mi mo dúpẹ́ o. Bàbá ó ṣoríire o. Ẹlẹ́dàá mi mo dúpẹ́ o. Bàbá ó ṣoríire o. Ẹlẹ́dàá mi mo dúpẹ́ o. Bàbá mi o. Ìyàwó àsìkò. Bàbá mi o. Ìyàwó afẹ́fẹ́. Bàbá mi o. Ìyàwó àsìkò. Bàbá mi o. Ìyàwó afẹ́fẹ́. Ìpè pèrè tó pè kò máa tẹ́ lọ́rùn. Ìpè pèrè tó pè kà máa tẹ́ lọ́rùn. Lẹ́pà, 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 bàbá mi jòkó. Lẹ́pà, 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 bàbá mi jòkó. Lẹ́pà, 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 bàbá mi jòkó. Lẹ́pà, 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 bàbá mi jòkó. Lẹ́pà, olórí, onítèmi, ọ̀rẹ́ mi, olólùfẹ́. Ojúbọ dáadáa ní lọ́rọ̀ wa kò máa sọ́dá tó yẹ wá. Olóòfin àríkùnrin tèmi, ọ̀rẹ́ mi, olólùfẹ́. Ojúbọ ládàá lórí ẹni lọ́rọ̀ wa kò máa sọ́dá tó yẹ wá. Mo rẹ́ni gan, mo rẹ́ni kejì mi. Gírígírí ló ṣe mí, ẹ bọ́dọ̀ bá mẹ́fẹ́ mi. Gbòǹgbò ṣọmọdé kan mọ́, ẹ wá bá mi hàn. Ọ̀rọ̀ ìfẹ́ ńlá bí àtọ́wòní. Nínú ọmọ tí mo fẹ́, ó fẹ́ lọ́wọ́ rẹ̀. Níbi kan rí kan mi, mo bá ẹ̀dẹ̀ wá mú. Mo fẹ́ bá ẹ dárúgbó, mo fẹ́ bá ẹ dálẹ̀. Wọ́n ní mo fẹ́ máa jírí lójoojúmọ́ ayé mi. Ìwé kíkọ́ láì sí ọ̀la àti àlá. Òyìnbé o, òyìnbé o. Iṣẹ́ rẹ̀, iṣẹ́ ilẹ̀ wa. Ẹni kò síṣẹ́, a máa jáde. Ìwé kíkọ́ láì sí ọ̀la tí a dá. Òyìnbé o, òyìnbé o. Iṣẹ́ ilẹ̀ wa. Ẹni kò síṣẹ́, a máa jáde. Lẹ́pà, 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 bàbá mi jòkó. Lẹ́pà, 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 bàbá mi jòkó. Lẹ́pà. Máa jó síbi tó ń bẹ̀. Máa jó síbi tó ń bẹ̀. Nígbà tó yó lọ́mọ abẹ́ ní ọ̀nà. Máa jó síbi tó ń bẹ̀. Nígbà tó yó lọ́mọ abẹ́ ní ọ̀nà. Máa jó síbi tó ń bẹ̀. Nígbà tó yó lọ́mọ abẹ́ ní ọ̀nà. Máa jó síbi tó ń bẹ̀. Ẹ bá mi sọ fún títí yẹn kó máa yọ o. Ó ti sọ wípé fáyì tẹ́lẹ̀ nàbà. Ẹ bá mi sọ fún bébí yẹn kó máa yọ o. Ó ti sọ wípé fáyì tẹ́lẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀. Bébí ṣọwọ́ kó máa yọ o. Ọmọdé ṣe mí nígbà. Odojomo kò pé Messiah ẹ̀bùn. Kò wá fún mi lọ́yọ̀ tó dùn o. Ẹ bá mi sọ fún bébí yẹn kó máa ń lọ o. Mo ti sọ wípé fáàdì tẹ́lẹ̀ tẹ́lẹ̀. Ẹ bá mi sọ fún bọ́bọ́ yẹn kó máa ń lọ o. Mo ti sọ wípé fáàdì tẹ́lẹ̀ ládọ́gba. Bébí jọ̀wọ́ kó máa ń lọ o. Ọmọ tètè rí bébí nígbà. Fóònù ìjọwọ́ kò gbé Messiah pẹ̀lú. Kò wá fún mi lọ́yọ̀ tó dùn o. Onídòdò, onímọ̀ọ́mọ́. Onídòdò, onímọ̀ọ́mọ́. Ìgbà tí kò tà wá pé bá kalẹ̀. Ẹ wá kò jà ńlá bí àjè. Time na money, eh. Time na money. Time na money, oh. Time na money. Use your time well. No waka waka. No bossy bossy. That's more than just a man. Use your time well. Do best nothing. Money don't come from heaven. Do best nothing. Money go on. I do what they tell you so. I keep on a bed. Joro, don't be yo. I keep on a bed. Joro, yo. On that bed. Joro, don't be yo. I keep on a bed. Joro, don't be yo. Baby, baby, fire, they go. All the boys they don't go that want some she got they don't go waka baby, baby, gonna baby. I go tell my mama and I go tell my papa and I go tell her say waka baby, baby, gonna